Nero Nights. Written by Keary Taylor. Narrated by Jamie Lamchick. 1. As far as I can tell, all the major connections to the core are intact, I say, wiping sweat from my brow. I've been crawling around down in the belly of the ship for over an hour, tangled in the mechanical guts of this beast, double and triple checking that every critical connection between the ship and the core is still working. There are some cracks to the interior of the hull, but so far, all the majorly important parts of this ship are still functioning.
So we can fix whatever's broken?
Valen asks. He's crouched on the floor of the mechanical room above me at the opening of the hatch, looking down into the tunnels I'm occupying. My eyes rise to meet his. I shake my head and shrug. That's the problem. I have no idea what's broken. I can't fix it if I don't know what to fix. He extends a hand to me and pulls me up and out of the tunnel, back onto the floor of the room with him.
We will figure it out,
he says, his tone reassuring.
There's a reason Cerilius sent half the galaxy on a wild hunt for you. If he thinks you're the best, you can do this.
I look over at him, glaring darkly. I'm annoyed that I can't immediately tell what's wrong with the ship. I'm annoyed that this slam ship is so slam complicated and that I wasn't a good enough pilot to keep us from crashing here in the first place. I turn away, facing the door, but I don't walk out just yet. I'm sorry, I say quietly.
For what?
He asks. I take a deep breath, my eyes searching for answers without really seeing anything. For being reckless. I guess that's something you should know about me. I don't exactly always think before I act. I'm sorry I thought taking this ship was a good idea. I'm sorry I thought I could handle it when obviously I couldn't. I'm sorry I'm not a good pilot. I'm sorry I got us lost and crashed us wherever the void we are. Warm hands grab me from behind, and I feel the heat of Valen warming the back of me. Gently, he turns me in place, making me look up at him. I feel heavy and worn down as I look up into his neon blue eyes.
Survivors have to act fast,
Valen says.
It's an evolutionary fact. Sometimes we make the right decisions in those snap moments, and sometimes we don't.
The look in his eyes deepens. He brings a hand up to my cheek, caressing it.
Your quick thinking got us out of the compound, Nova, he says. Cerilius has thousands of ships that could have taken us down in an ordinary ship. His soldiers are the best in the galaxy. If you hadn't stolen this exact ship, if we hadn't somehow punched a hole through space, he would have won. We would be on Isroth right now, either locked in a cage or being mentally twisted by his Kindori.
My throat tightens with his words, and it annoys me that my eyes well a little. I turn my face away from him, taking a hard breath, trying to regain control of myself. But firm and gentle, Valen makes me look back at him.
Stop being afraid of yourself, Nova,
he says softly. In his eyes, I see acceptance, that I'm allowed to feel what I feel. He can't be right, because he's done so many terrible things in his life. How can someone who's done so much bad be so right about my emotions? Even so, his words reach me. I feel them. I need them. So I let the tears come, and I wrap my arms behind his neck, and I pull his face to mine. We just crash-landed. I have no idea what all of this means for the future. And it's insanity, the fact that I've only kissed this man twice before. But I kiss Valen with violence and desperation, even as I let the tears roll down my face and sobs escape my lips. I cry, and I kiss Valen, and Valen kisses me back and holds me like I'm going to shatter, and his arms are the only thing that can prevent it from happening. He scoops me up into his arms, but he doesn't break the kiss, and I don't release him. Like I weigh nothing at all, he walks across the mechanical room and maneuvers us through the doorway. I don't know where he's taking us, but I close my eyes, letting the tears stream down my face in an unceasing river. I cling tighter to Valen. I deepen our kiss. I relish in the feeling of being safe and supported. Dim light finds its way through the port window of the sleeping quarters. Gently, Valen climbs onto the bed, carefully lying me back where I'd woken just a few hours earlier. I lay back, looking up into Valen's beautiful face, still keeping a firm grip on his tunic so he can't leave me. My heart cracks a little when I interpret the expression on his face. Devotion, protection, acceptance. Only one other person has looked at me this way. My father. I never doubted him that he would take care of me, no matter the cost. That's what I see in Valen's eyes, which makes mine well even more. He brushes a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch so gentle.
When was the last time you ate?
I actually huff a laugh. It's so bizarre, this legendary Nero taking such gentle care of me, asking me when I last ate. I have no idea, honestly. Not since before you got back to Isroth, probably.
Stay here, he says. Rest. I'm gonna go find us something to eat.
My first instinct is to fight him, to tell him that I will help him, that he doesn't have to take care of me. But I see it in his expression. He wants to do this. And I think I want to let him. Okay. I agree softly. He dips, pressing one soft kiss to my lips before he stands and heads to the door to go see what there is to eat. I pull the blanket up to my chest, curling up on my side, burrowing down in the surprisingly comfortable bed. My eyes fix on a place on the wall, but I'm not seeing its dull gray surface. My mind is spinning, reeling, thinking of all the ramifications of the past 12 hours. Cerilius knows I'm a Nero. He knows Nimia is a Nero. Did she and Zane and Edan get away? Are they somewhere safe? What do they all think happened to me? And Dad. I crush the thought of him, trying to push away the image of his cut throat and all the blood pooling around him. I can't. I just can't process that right now. So I think about this ship. I think about its mechanisms. I think about the blueprints for every ship I've ever seen. I think about how I would design a ship like this if I were going to create my own. This is what you know, I tell myself. This is what you're good at. Focus on what you know. With pipes and bolts and combustors flashing through my mind, I drift off to sleep.
Nova,
a soft voice says in my ear. Slowly I blink, seeing the same eyes I was seeing just a moment ago. A little smile pulls on my lips. Valen smiles too, and my heart flutters. There isn't another smile in the galaxy like Valen's.
Come eat,
he says, extending a hand to help me up. I blink, slightly confused as my brain wakes and realizes Valen is actually here and isn't going to fade away with the wind. I look around, reorienting myself. Right. We've crash-landed. I take his hand and follow him from the sleeping quarters to the command deck. The hatch is still open, letting in cool air. Down the ramp, in a circle of rocks, is a crackling fire. On a roughly carved spear, extending over the fire, is some kind of skinned animal. You know how to hunt, I say, slightly surprised as I follow him down the ramp.
It's the only way to survive on Starvis,
he answers as he takes a seat on one of the large rocks, and I realize there are two, set up side by side. Just the right height to sit on.
No government meals there.
Starvis is a desert planet, I say, settling next to him, watching as he removes the spit and begins carving up the animal with a knife, dividing the slivers of meat onto plates. What is there to hunt there?
Sand snakes, mostly,
he says, as he breaks a leg off the beast and peels the meat off.
But there were also rabbits and vultures if you could get your hands on a bow and arrow.
I sit in wonder, silenced as he hands me a plate filled with protein. I'm not sure what to say. Our beginnings were so vastly different. So I don't say anything. I take a bite of the meat. Wow, I say with an odd laugh. Valen, this is actually really good. He huffs a laugh.
Don't ask me to make anything in an actual kitchen, but an animal over an open fire, that I know how to prepare.
I shake my head, taking another bite. Well, it's a good thing you have that skill set at least. If it were up to me to feed us, we'd be slagged. I've never had to do more than warm up a pre-prepared government meal in my life. Valen chews a bite of the creature he killed and smiles.
Now that you mention it, it has always been me cooking the meals.
I smile, realizing he's talking about the future. We've both seen visions of them, over and over. The two of us, happy and together. A family, with 2 children. I shake my head. What a weird life this has turned into, I say. You and me, we don't really even know each other, but we've seen so much, felt so much. Valen nods.
None of my life has been normal, according to any standards in the galaxy, but it's certainly grown a lot more complicated since the day you showed up in my head.
I look over at Valen, meeting his eyes. It's getting dark, but sitting before the fire, his eyes are so bright I could swear they glow in the dark. It all feels backwards, I say. It almost feels like we've already lived those lives, had our children, and now we're only just discovering the beginning. Valen nods.
I don't know what's going to happen to us, Nova, if we're ever going to find a way off this planet, but I'm grateful for the time the crash is giving us.
And it makes me smile when he extends a hand. He smiles too, when I take his hand and he shakes it.
It's nice to meet you, Nova Ainsley,
he says softly with a hint of a smile.
I can't wait to actually get to know you.
A little laugh bubbles up out of my chest, and I shake my head. I lick my lips, letting my head tilt to one side. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Valen Nero. 2. My body hasn't had time to learn this planet's schedule yet, but somehow I know it's early in the morning when my eyes slide open. The blankets are pulled up to my chin. My body is relaxed and comfortable. It's actually nice. And I realize it's because I have some degree of peace of mind. Right now, I'm not pretending to be someone or something I'm not. After weeks of hiding everything on Isroth, here, I don't have to be anything. I'm just Nova. Across the space, just 5 feet away, I see Valen. He's still asleep. He's sprawled on his back, but his head is angled toward me, giving me a full view of his face. He looks younger when he sleeps. I've done the math and figure he's roughly 5 solars older than me. But he looks incredibly young in sleep. He could nearly pass for a teenager. His black eyelashes fan out over his cheeks. His lips are pink and soft. There aren't any creases in his forehead, furrowed with concern. He just looks peaceful. And I have to wonder what a different person he would have been if someone besides Cerilius had saved him from Starvis. What kind of person would he be if it had been Zara who had found him? How much of what makes us is in our nature, and how much of it comes from our circumstances? What kind of person would I be if it had been Cerilius who had found me floating in space, instead of Torin? I roll out of bed knowing this thought could drive me mad, but in the end, the past doesn't matter. It's over. All that matters is that we are both trying to change our futures. I leave Valen to keep sleeping and head out into the mass of the ship. I go through the wiring beneath the command deck, and I count it as a small victory when I find where some of them had been knocked loose, but then I'm quickly disappointed when I find those wires didn't do anything to get the ship started again. Determined, I follow them, going from one end to the other. I find an electrical panel that has a crack in it. It's something. If I can fix this, it should do something. But I know it isn't our biggest problem. I have yet to find what that is. For over an hour, I've been up in the transformers that convert the energy of Nero into what powers the ship, looking for a glitch, when I see Valen appear in the door below me.
Any luck?
He asks. I shrug, aiming the light along the lines. Everything looks fine. Yeah, I found one issue, but I know it's not the main issue. I'll keep looking.
Why don't we find something to eat first?
Valen suggests. As if it was pre-predicted, my stomach gives a massive growl just then. I clamp my hands over it in embarrassment, but Valen just laughs and extends a hand up to me, helping me climb down out of the ceiling. Through the ship we walk, and then down the ramp. It's a lot colder this morning, I observe. There's dew clinging to everything, making the world glitter as the sun begins to rise to the top of the mountain to our right. Valen nods.
We're at a high elevation. The temperatures dip their coldest right before the sun comes up.
My eyes rise up and up that mountain peak. There is white at the top of it. What season do you think it is here? There has to be seasons. There's evidence of it all around. Leaves on the ground, snow up in the mountains, but the grasses at our feet are still green.
Either spring or fall,
Valen says, observing our surroundings.
It's hard to tell right now. We should try to gauge the temperatures over the next few days.
Let's keep our fingers crossed that we're entering spring, I say. I've only ever experienced winter conditions once, on a planet during our run aboard the Corsair, and it was brutal. I'm not eager to test my survival skills while stranded on a planet plunging into winter lunars. Valen nods.
There's water this way.
We crash-landed in a valley. The mountains are closest to our right, where the sun is just breaking. But out across the valley, there are more mountains. We're entirely surrounded. All around us are towering trees, both the kind that keep their leaves and needles all winter, and the kind that are barren. Valen cuts through the meadow of grass and aims for the tree line. I follow behind him, taking in my surroundings with wonder. How similar is Kylea to this planet? I ask, as I follow him down the narrow path between trees.
There's a lot of vegetation there, so that's similar,
Valen says, as he summons a Neron spear and slices his way through the underbrush.
But Kylea is always warm, more tropical. 3/4 of the planet is ocean.
Walking through all this dewy underbrush is getting me wet, and it's still quite cool this morning. It's soaking me through. I'd do just about anything for some heat right now, I say, wrapping my arms around myself. And I realize that I'm still wearing a Dominion uniform. I was still pretending to work for Cerilius when we made our break. I don't have my own regular fingerless gloves. I'm not wearing my own heavy-duty boots. I certainly don't have a coat.
We will go there sometime,
Valen says, looking over his shoulder at me.
Soon.
I smile, and my heart breaks out into a skipping race. Not if I can't get this ship fixed.
You will,
he says, and he sounds absolutely confident. We break through the trees, and I stop at Valen's side in absolute wonder. A small sandy beach stretches out before us, before giving way to the pristine surface of a lake. It stretches longer than it is wide, hugging the side of the mountain. There, directly across from us, is a massive waterfall. It splashes as it hits ledges and rocks on its way down, creating a massive spray of mist. As the sun's rays hit it, it forms a huge rainbow that arcs over the entire lake. It's beautiful, I say in wonder, shaking my head.
I still prefer Kylea, but this comes in as a close second.
My eyes slide over to look at Valen. He looks straight ahead, holding a serious expression, but a small smile cracks in one corner of his mouth. I laugh, bumping his shoulder with mine, throwing him off balance. You're creating some unrealistic expectations, Valen Nero, I say, as I walk across the sand until the tips of my boots are touching the water. I'm going to be disappointed by the time you actually take me to our planet. My stomach knots as soon as I realize what I've just said. I stand stark still, my eyes freezing on one point on the water. Behind me, Valen is very still and very quiet, too. I scramble to make this better, to make things less awkward. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Valen's hand slips into mine, and I look up into his eyes.
No,
he says, shaking his head.
It feels right. We have seen our lives there. We've seen our family there. It's yours too, Nova.
There is so much weight to those 4 words. They're so intimate and inviting and permanent. They're a promise. Valen,
Do you know how to swim?
He suddenly asks, changing the subject and derailing the weight and seriousness of the conversation. Swim? I ask, my brain struggling to catch up with the change in conversation. A little smile crooks in one corner of his mouth, and he nods.
I grew up on a planet with next to no water. After that, my life was lived on ships in space. I never learned how to swim.
A little laugh bubbles out of my chest. I shake my head. My entire home planet is covered in skyscrapers. I didn't live anywhere near the ocean or any lakes. I don't know how to swim. A mischievous little smile forms on Valen's face. He kicks his boots off and takes one step into the water, grabbing hold of my hands firmly.
I've always wanted to learn how to swim.
Valen, no! I say, my insides turning serious as I tug back against him. But he's slam strong, and I'm pulled one step into the water, which leaks into my boot. Valen, no! It's freezing!
You're a Nero,
he says, pulling me another step into the water.
Warm the water around you.
Valen! I protest, but a smile pulls on my lips and I scramble to kick my boots off. They land in the sand with a soft plunk. Realizing he isn't going to let me go, I crouch before leaping into the air and wrapping my thighs around his hips, clinging to him, trying to climb higher and avoid the freezing water.
You cheat!
He yells. His hands come to my hips, holding onto me tightly, but he keeps walking back into the water, sending splashes over me. I scream, but the water isn't freezing anymore. It glows as it ripples around us, turning neon blue. You're insane! I bellow as he tips backward, and I only just suck in a breath before we crash into the water, and we're both submerged. I break away from Valen, flinging my arms wildly through the water in an attempt to right myself. My toes frantically search for the bottom of the lake, and a breathy huff of relief sails from my lips when I find it. Valen surfaces above the water, quickly flicking his head back and forth, sending water everywhere as it slips from his hair.
Do you know how to swim yet?
He laughs as he runs a hand down his face, swiping the water from it. You are crazy, I say, waving my arms through the water to help me keep my balance. My chin is only barely above water. We're both going to die out here. How are either of us supposed to learn anything with no teacher?
Experience under pressure is supposed to be the quickest teacher, isn't it?
He takes a step toward me, and I can't help but smile as his hands come to my hips. I relish in the heat his hands bring, warming me and warming the water around us. I feel all my senses blurring as he comes closer, his eyes fixed on my lips. Mine just start to slide closed. When suddenly his hands leave me, and I hear the water rippling. My eyes flash open to see Valen already walking up the shore. What?
Get back to work,
he says coldly. He doesn't even look back as he retrieves his shoes from the beach.
We have to get back to Isroth as soon as possible.
I'm halfway out of the water when his eyes suddenly dart back to me, his expression wide and filled with horror. What the void? I demand, my brows furrowed, anger flaring through every one of my veins. You...
I don't know why I just said that, Nova,
Valen says, his eyes still wide and confused.
I didn't even mean to get out of the water. Suddenly all I could think about was getting back on the ship and getting back in space.
His hand goes to his chest, and I realize just how hard he's breathing.
I have to get back to Isroth.
My stomach sinks, and suddenly I'm so cold. I walk up the shore and out of the lake, my eyes fixed on Valen's. When I reach him, I place my hands on either side of his head, keeping his gaze locked on me. You do not have to go back. You are free. You're here with me. His eyes widen just a little more.
I can't, Nova,
he says, his voice nearly a whisper.
I can't stay here.
This is what he did to you, Valen, I say, staring into his eyes as if I can see down into his soul. This isn't you. This is his Kindori. This is what he's used against you for solars. Valen drops his boots in the sand and brings his hands up to cover mine. He squeezes his eyes closed, and I feel his entire body begin to shake.
I don't know if we can beat this, Nova,
he says, his voice quivering.
It's like there's a voice in my head screaming over and over that I have to go back. There's a hole in my chest, and there's a tether there, attached from me to Cerilius, and it's reeling me in.
I shake my head. It isn't real, Valen, but I know it feels like it is. Valen's eyes slide open, and in that moment, I feel the door between our minds swing open. I'm falling through suffocating sand. It's dark and lonely, and this tunnel is filled to the brim with fear. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. They're going to find me, and they're going to skin me alive and make me watch as they eat me piece by piece. Savage, savage, savage survival. But there's a bright spot. There's salvation. I have to get back to Cerilius. I suck in a breath and pull away from Valen, breaking our physical connection. No, I say, shaking my head, even as my entire body trembles. It's not real. It's not now. I take 3 deep breaths, taking 3 steps away from Valen before I can look back at him. He looks at me with fearful pleading in his eyes. It's all a trick, Valen, I say, keeping my voice calm and even. It isn't real right now. I'm going to figure out how to fix what he did to you. Valen is breathing hard, but I see his body calming. I see the fear and the memories beginning to fade. He returns to the present, to the here and now.
Nova,
I will figure this out, Valen, I say, my tone firm and hard. I close the distance between us, taking his hands in mine. I will, because I cannot live with the alternative. So if it takes me the rest of my life, I won't fix that ship. We'll spend the rest of our lives stuck here while I undo what he did. I see a conflicting typhoon of emotion ripping through Valen's eyes. He's never, ever had someone who cared about him, who promised to take care of him. It's a part of his darkness. He's survived on his own for so long. He doesn't want to believe. He doesn't dare. But still, he pulls me into his arms, crushing me to him tightly, as he buries his face in my neck. 3. We go back to the ship. By the time we get there, we're both freezing from walking around in the cool temperatures, soaking wet. I strip my uniform off and hang it in the washroom and wrap myself in a bedsheet. While Valen does the same, I return to the command deck, and I'm grateful when there's enough power to close the hatch. I don't have the same luck in turning on the interior heaters. I head back toward the sleeping quarters, thankful that it is warmest there. It gets the most direct sunlight, creating natural heat. I stop dead just after I walk through the door, because Valen stands there, looking out the window at the brilliant day. He has only a bedsheet wrapped around his waist. Even in all our visions, in our time physically together, I have never seen Valen without a shirt. It's certainly a view to appreciate. Valen keeps himself very physically strong and healthy. But it isn't his beautiful physical body that stops me dead. It's the endless scarring that laces over his whole body. There's a long, angry scar that stretches from his waist all the way up his stomach and chest, ending at his collarbone. There are at least a dozen lash scars across his back, and I remember seeing visions of him being whipped as a young teenager. Dozens and dozens of scars crisscross over his arms, his chest, his neck, his sides. Valen, I say in a breath. I step into the room and he watches me as I approach. I reach a hand forward, gently touching the big scar that runs up his front. He grabs my wrist, bringing my hand up to his chest, laying it flat against his skin, over his heart. He holds his hand over my own.
One by one, these scars made me who I am.
There's a dark tone to his voice that I don't like, don't want to be there.
Whether Cerilius made me this way or not, these parts of me are who I am. The past doesn't disappear. Everything in front of us is going to be hard, maybe impossible. Are you sure I'm worth it, Nova?
My eyes rise up to his, and I let his words sink into me. I let them fill my heart, my stomach, my eyes. That's what we're here for, Valen. I answer him. That's why we crashed on this planet, to discover the answer to that question. But you're a human being. No one deserves what he's put you through all this time. I would do this for anyone. I see the expression in Valen's eyes change a little, but I don't know how to read it. He's so complex, and I only know how to read him when he lets me inside his very mind. He looks down at my hand on his chest and touches his forehead to mine. He holds his other hand on the back of my neck, keeping us connected, inseparable.
Everything about you is so foreign to me, Nova, he says. Never in my entire life have I encountered anyone with even a small degree of your determination and goodness.
It feels like he has more to say, but he doesn't. Maybe because he knows he shouldn't. I try to put myself in his place, knowing what I do about him, and understand. Lie down, I say. Let's see what we can find. He looks doubtful and worried as we break apart, but he doesn't say anything as he lies down on the bed where he slept. He lays flat on his back, his eyes turned up to the ceiling. I kneel behind him, positioned above his head. I let my eyes slide closed for a moment, collecting myself. I tell myself to be strong, to not lose who I am when I go in there. I tell myself to find the bad, to find the tainted traces that are not Valen, and get them out.
I believe in you,
Valen whispers. And with his affirmation, I touch the sides of Valen's head, and I let myself fall down into his mind. It's dark. So dark. I hear screams. I hear a language I do not recognize. I feel sand all around my body. I see dozens of worlds and various ships. I see neon blue. I see red blood. I suck in a shallow breath. I press my fingertips tightly into Valen's temples. I shift in the bed, better balancing myself. You can do this, I say to myself. I believe in you. And I'm not sure if it's just a memory or a voice in my head. A scream flashes. The shape of Cerilius's voice booms in my brain. I feel lives all around me. I feel pain and resentment. I feel darkness. There's a rush of power, more Neron than I've ever felt, flows through my veins. It releases. And then the world is silent. Images flash through my head, Valen over and over, carrying out Cerilius's commands, ending lives, diverting water supplies to drive out populations, punishing insubordinate employees. and all I feel is numbness. He's empty. There's that dark cavern, and that makes Valen who he is. I feel that cavern transferring to me. I feel despair. I feel doubt. Valen is not a good person. He can't leave Cerilius, but obeying all those commands, I feel the choice in them. Valen did them because he believed there was nothing better, and no reason to hope. But in that moment, I take my awareness to my fingertips. I concentrate on the feeling of my skin on his. Valen has done bad things, but he is a human being. He has a heart. He has his own mind. He has potential. With determined focus, I let myself dive into his mind. Deeper and deeper I burrow. I ignore all the darkness, all the actions of his past. I dive for the center of his mind. And there, in the very middle of who he is, I find it. A pulsing black darkness. It's real, and it's alive. There's a screaming storm surrounding it, and flashes of red, demonic lightning. But I see it, clear as day. So cautious, afraid, and hopeful, I reach a hand toward it. I summon Nero, collecting all the power I can. I reach. I imagine killing that pulsing darkness. My hands glow blue and brilliant. And the second I touch it, my brain is filled with screams, a howling storm of rage. And everything goes dark. 4. There's a bitter taste on my tongue when I wake, like copper and silt and vinegar. I blink my eyes open, searching the space. There are no signs of Valen. As I sit up, my stomach is in knots. My heart is heavy. I don't know what I was expecting. I always think I'm more capable than I am. Maybe I thought I'd go into Valen's mind and it would be easy to undo what Cerilius did. Which was so slam stupid. The Kinduri have been manipulating him for solars. They've built up layers and layers of darkness. But I'm still crushed. I'm still shaking with the weight of what I saw in Valen's mind. Get over it, I try to tell myself. I retrieve my uniform from the washroom and pull it on. There are no signs of Valen in the ship, and when I get to the command deck, I find the hatch open. Looking for a few more moments of solitude, I step out of the ship and scale it. I climb the slick surface until I settle on top of the core, letting its warm, swirling mass warm me from beneath. It's cool out here, and I think it's a little cooler than it was yesterday. Something in my gut says that winter is on its way. I turn my face up to the sky where the sun is rising, only just minutes past the peak of the mountain. I listen to the sound of a river. I hear a bird cry off in the distance. The needles of the trees rustle against each other in the slight breeze. It's peaceful out here, but my insides are anything but.
Nova?
Valen's voice comes from below, concern and questioning heavy in his tone. Not right now, Valen, I say, letting honest words come across my lips. I just need a little time alone right now. He hesitates for a moment, and my instinct is to evaluate his silence. But I'm just too tired right now, just too exhausted with my own thoughts.
I got us some food. I'll be inside if you need me.
Thank you. I offer the only words I can manage. I don't even hear his sounds as he walks back into the ship. Nothing is working right. Nothing has gone according to plan. Nothing is what I thought it would be since the day Dominion showed up on Corpillion. I had it all laid out. I would keep building illegal weapons until I had enough credits to get 3 people off the planet and somewhere better. I was doing it. And then everything went sideways. I don't even know if Zane made it off Isroth. I don't know if he's safe. If Edan is, if Nimia made it out alive. Are you there? I mentally call out. My mind searches through space for a target, for a small door. Nova. I hear her voice answer inside my head. Are they alive? Have they found you? A defeated sob escapes my mouth. So you haven't heard from them in the last few days? No, Zara responds. Nova, they found you. They helped you escape? I shake my head as emotions fill me. They found me, but everything went wrong. The last time I saw them, they were on the Corsair, and I was distracting Cerilius's troops so they could escape. Something went wrong with the ship I was on, and I don't know if they made it off or not. Where are you, Nova? Zara asks, her tone quiet and worried. I shake my head once more. I have no idea. On a planet? Possibly in the VW or X sectors? Our communications and navigation system is wrecked. Our? Zara asks, her tone questioning and suspicious. My insides freeze. I've never told her about my connection to Valen. She doesn't know what Evander does. Someone else who was trapped on Isroth escaped with me, I say, giving a truth. She hesitates, and I know she's evaluating what I'm saying. I feel as if my history, my future, and my feelings for Valen are written on my very skin. But I've never told her any of it. I couldn't confess it to her. Not to anyone but Edan. Are you unhurt? She asks, instead of prying the truth from my mind. Her question forces all of my emotions to my eyes, and 5 tears instantly leak from my eyes. I shake my head. No, I say, in a mental, breathy whisper. Nothing has gone right. I don't know where Zane and Nimia and Edan are. My father. My words cut off as a constant stream of tears roll down my face. Nova, what happened to Torin? I can't say the words. So I open the door between our minds a little wider and I show her. I see Cerilius holding the sword made by my own hands to my father's throat. I show her the building on Garaloon coming down on us. I show her Zane and Nimia crouching over him when the rubble was clear. I show her the blood, the cut across his throat. I am so sorry, Nova. Zara's empathetic voice comes through to my mind. Your father, he was such a good man. I nod, even though she can't see it. I feel crushed. I feel wave after wave of grief washing through me. Can you please let me know if you hear from Zane or Edan or Nimia? I ask, needing to close this mind link. Can you please let me know the second they contact you? Of course, she agrees. Nova, I'm sorry, I have to go, I say, cutting her off. Thank you for everything. I close our connection without another word. I lay on my back, stretching out along the length of the core. I cross my arms over my eyes and let all of my tears drown me, It's wrong. It's all wrong. Nothing has worked. It's just too much. I can't do it all. I'm just one slam girl. Who the void do I think I am? A warm hand comes to my thigh, and I move my arms to see Valen kneeling beside me. There's worry and concern in his eyes. And I realize that a part of my mind is always open to his, and Valen's gotten a taste of everything that's been going through my head. But he doesn't say anything. He just lies down beside me, pulls me into his chest, and holds me as I cry over all the things that feel too big in this moment. I spend the rest of the day buried in the belly of the ship, because that's what I know how to do. Ships and mechanics are simple. They're straightforward. A, B, and C. 1, 2, and 3. Copper, steel, titanium. I find a crack along the main hull, down at the very bottom of the ship. We are slam lucky they were still working on this ship when we stole it. The ship is full of tools and supplies and everything they were using to finish it. I find a welding machine, and I spend the rest of the day repairing the crack. By the time I finish it, it looks better than it did before we took off from Isroth. In total, the entire day, Valen and I say less than 10 words to each other. We're both lost in our own heads. We need to not constantly run through it all. So that night, we both climb into bed. We don't say anything. And I go to sleep. Click, 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 click. The sharp, rapid-fire noises bolt me from sleep. I sit straight up in bed, reaching for my Neron staff at my side. There's no one around, but the lights going toward the command deck are on. I hear someone swear. I look to my side, to Valen's bed, and find it empty. I scramble to my feet, making my way through the mess of the ship. I walk down the hall, past the doors leading elsewhere in the ship, and step into the dim light of the command deck. Valen stands at the controls, furiously messing with the touchpad and pressing any button or switch there is. Valen? I question as I step forward, my eyes rising up to his face. What are you doing? Suddenly, his gaze whips over to me, his brows furrowed, an angry set to his eyes.
We've been stranded here for days, he says, his tone annoyed. He looks back at the controls and keeps smashing his fingers to the commands. I thought you were the best. Are you sure you're even a Nero? As a mechanic and a Nero, surely you would have found a way to fix this by now. I know he can't control what he's saying, but his words still sting me right in the heart. You're going to do more damage than good if you keep pummeling it like a Neanderthal. I growl at Valen. His eyes rip back to me again, and his hands finally freeze. He stands there, frozen, for a good 6 breaths, and I see the expression in his eyes begin to soften. He blinks, and then he blinks again, 4 times fast. His eyes go back to the command controls, and he looks at them wide-eyed and confused. I don't remember getting out of bed, he says, as much to himself as it is to me. I think I was dreaming. I was back on Isroth and there was something important that I was supposed to be doing. He looks back at me again, and his expression tells me he's worried. He can't control himself. Sit down, I say, no nonsense in my voice as I point at the captain's chair just behind him. His expression sobers, but he does as I tell him. I cross the space, placing my hands on the armrests, getting right in Valen's face,
my nose only 2 inches away from his. I need you to focus, I say, and it's as if I have armor rolling over my body. I feel it, that bold, reckless determination washing over me. I won't let this get out of my control. I am so slam sick of this already. I'm going to win, if it takes the last bit of my sanity. I need you to concentrate on the pit of your darkness, on that center of your fear, I say, staring into Valen's neon blue eyes. I need you to open it as wide as you can to think about never, ever, ever going back to Cerilius. I need that door as wide open as it can be so I can go in there and destroy it. With each of my words, Valen's eyes grow just a little wider. I can feel it already. His fear, his past eating him alive, and I'm not even touching him yet. I'm going to save you, Valen, I promise him. So he nods. I see trust in his eyes. I step around him, standing behind him. I bring my fingertips to his temples. I take a breath, gathering every bit of courage and willpower into my veins. And I dive into Valen's mind. I'm like a bullet. I dive in deep and fast. I fly past the swirling images around me. I ignore the storms. I'm a focused laser. I know what I'm looking for. I know where it is. I sail straight for it. And there, right in front of me, I find it. The pulsing darkness. I hear the screams, I see the lightning, I feel the dark pull. I am stronger than this. I am better than the Kindori. Without fear, I march straight up to that darkness. I gather Neron around me. I let it fill me right to the brim. It's coursing through me, beating with the steadiness of a drum. I hold my hands up. They're alight with Neron. And I plunge my hands into the heart of the darkness. Screams. Mine. Valen's. Screams of 1,000 Kindori. Screams of Cerilius. I'm overcome with noise and madness, like sound is pummeling me, and will leave me a bloodied, broken mess on the ground. But then the darkness shatters. Pieces of it fly everywhere and instantly dissolve into the air. And a smile pulls on my lips. There is still a lump of it left. There's still a solid core. But I broke it. I'm going to win. Maybe the war isn't won today, but I've won this battle. I'm going to win. My eyes slide open, and for just a moment I watch Valen breathe. He pulls in deep, hard breaths. And then, slowly, he turns, his eyes locking on mine. "It's working," he says, his voice a breathy whisper of surprise. My smile grows bigger. "It's working," I say in response. 5. As the sun rises over the peak of the mountain, Valen and I sit in the kitchen aboard the ship, eating strips of meat he cooked over the fire. "We should go foraging," I say, as I swallow another bite. As great as this tastes, I think we need something besides protein. Valen nods, licking his lips as he finishes another bite. "I'd spotted some berries before. It's where I was headed when we went to the lake that day." I smile, recalling our dunk into the water, choosing to ignore what happened after. I think we might need to go for another swim. I've been wearing this uniform for 3 days. I haven't showered. I feel disgusting. Valen nods with a little smile, taking another bite. He killed a small, crawling creature, Cooked it. We'll polish it off in just one sitting. I can't eat any more, but Valen doesn't seem finished yet, so I lean back in my seat, crossing my ankles and propping them up on the bench. I fold my arms over my chest, watching Valen. Have you ever, been interested in a woman before? The question blurts out of me, so random and unexpected, I feel my own eyes widen at my boldness. Valen stops chewing, his eyes whipping to me. I'm sorry, I say, looking away from him, feeling heat creep up my neck. We kind of need to actually get to know each other, and we've never really had that opportunity. There's still a lot we don't know about each other, so I thought...
It's fine,
he says, though he does sound a little uncomfortable.
You're right. We don't know if we actually even like each other outside of fate and attraction. If we're going to have a future together, we need to actually know one another.
He sounds awkward, uncomfortable. But I hear sincerity in his words, and as I meet his gaze once more, I see that he means them. He lets out a slow breath, bracing his elbows on the table between us, resting his chin in his thumbs.
As a soldier, there was never time or opportunity to form real friendships, real relationships.
He begins. His eyes go to the window, and he watches the color of the sunrise spill through the valley, deep hues of red and gold.
Us children from Starvis stuck together. We were loyal to each other, though it probably looked different from your version of loyalty.
I nod. Commander 12-3 explained it a little. She said she has a job working for Cerilius, but her loyalty lies with you. Valen nods, his eyes going back to me.
There are 5 of us left, though 3 of the others are stationed outside of the presidential compound. 12-3 and I are the only ones who remain in contact.
Does she not have a real name? I ask, my brows furrowed. Valen shakes his head.
She was young when Dominion took us away from our planet. Names were never very important on Starvis, but she was young enough she couldn't remember hers. We were each given a number when we were assimilated into Dominion. She's only identified as that number ever since then.
It's so sad. To just be a number, to not even have a personal identity. She has very little from before. Just Valen.
She has never been anything more to me than someone I could trust.
There is very, very little that I can hide from Valen. I must always remember that. He can read more than just my thoughts. He can read my feelings. My eyes flick back up to his.
My entire life has been spent as a soldier. I have worked. I have spent my personal time on Kylea where there are no other people.
The sincerity in his voice pulls me closer to him. I sit forward, mirroring Valen's position.
I've never been given time to want to be with someone.
His eyes drop to my lips, and he stares at them for a long moment.
It hardly even occurred to me that was a part of life, until I woke up with a voice in my head and I looked forward to her impossible company every single day.
I reach forward, lacing my fingers through Valen's, looking into his endless eyes. You know about Zane, I say. We were together for a long time. We worked together. He was one of the few people I could stand. On paper, we should have had a future together. Valen's brows furrow, and I can tell he doesn't like hearing about my past relationship. But this is real. This is our beginning, and we're supposed to talk about these kinds of things. But He wasn't enough for me. I hate the words. I hate myself for confessing them and feeling their truth. Because I have to be a terrible person to think that about someone who is wonderful. In the end, we weren't balanced. Valen's fingers tighten around me, and I just have this feeling in my gut that even though Valen and I are so opposite, even though everything in the galaxy is against the likelihood of us being us, we are perfectly balanced. Zane was the only person I let in, I say, looking at Valen, opening the truth in my heart to him. The only person I let in as much as I was capable of opening up. But he was my past, and what I'm capable of sharing now? I shake my head. Everything is different. I want you to feel that. And I flood Valen with it. All my insecurities, all my doubts about us. But all the ways I've been more genuine with him than I've ever been with Zane, or any other human being in my entire life. Valen reaches forward with his free hand and caresses my jaw, brushing his thumb over my cheek and then my lower lip. He looks at it again, studying it.
I don't know how this works,
he says, his voice low.
I don't know what this is supposed to look like. I've never, ever seen an example of a relationship. I don't know what I'm supposed to do or if I'm doing something wrong. I'm afraid I'm doing everything backwards.
I smile, my insides warming. I never knew a mother. It isn't like I had parents to watch and learn from. I didn't have any friends to look at their examples either. I made a million mistakes with Zane. I think we just have to do things our own way, even if it's different from how anyone else in the galaxy has ever done it. A look of relief fills Valen's face, so I smile again as I stand, still holding onto his hand, and tug him after me. Hand in hand, we walk through the ship and down the ramp. Hand in hand, we head out into the world to look for food. It's a risk, eating anything on this planet when none of it has been tested. We could easily poison ourselves. But it's a large degree of comfort having a Nero at your side who can heal you with Neron if you eat something wrong. We find the last remaining fruit clinging to a tree. Its skin is yellow and uneven, but the meat inside is bright pink and extremely juicy and sweet. We collect all 8 of them that are left. Valen spots these bumpy green leaves that grow on vines. When we grab them to test if they have any flavor, we find they pull out of the ground, revealing a brown root vegetable. There are hundreds of them, and they're everywhere. We pull up enough to last us a few days. We make our way toward the lake, to where Valen found the berries before. There, we find a 4-legged, hairy animal feeding on them. Valen's eyes light up. An easy target for our next meal since we've just finished off his last catch. Silently, I watch him. Blue gathers around Valen's hands, and expertly, he forms the Neron into a spear. It lengthens and flattens. He makes a V with his thumb and index finger, aiming himself. His other hand draws back, pulling back his spear. And when his aim is true, he releases the Neron. The creature drops dead, not even having to experience any pain. We collect the berries, adding them to our bounty. Carefully, we set the collection bags aside, next to our beast, and we both head down to the lake's shore. It really is beautiful here, I say, taking everything in as I stand with my boots at the shore's edge. The snow at the top of the mountain glitters. The air is crystal clear. There are still a few leaves clinging to the tree branches on the other side of the lake, giving a wash of red and purple and pink. A flock of birds swoop through, diving to the water's edge, and 2 of them come up with a fish.
I sometimes forget you've only seen a few planets,
Valen says, as he takes it all in with me.
I think I stopped appreciating local beauty after the first dozen planets I saw. But just about everywhere, except Isroth, is more beautiful than Starvis.
I kick off my boots, and the cold reminds me to summon Nero, warming everything around me. I unzip my uniform and start slipping out of it so I can wash it and myself.
Nova,
Valen says, sounding completely scandalized. He turns slightly away from me, trying to angle away, but his eyes keep darting back to me as I pull my uniform off and stand at the water's edge in just my underthings. What? I ask, part truly wondering at his reaction, part smiling because he can't stop looking at me. He squeezes his eyes closed and takes a deep, slow breath.
I'm trying to take this slow because it feels like the best way to actually get to know each other. But you stripping down to nearly nothing right in front of me is not helping my resolve.
I feel myself blushing, but I still laugh. I bend down and splash water at him. He flinches away from it, looking at me with alarmed eyes. Don't be such a prude, I tease him. It's just a body. We're all naked underneath our clothes, all the time. His eyes burn with heat as he glares at me.
But yours is one I've explored over and over in the future, and you're making it very hard to not make the future the present right now.
Something simmers in my lower belly, and every one of my nerves sparks with a wave of energy. Clinging to my uniform, I walk backwards into the water, letting it cover my thighs, my stomach, my chest. Well, I'm very happy to hear those desires don't only exist in the future, I say, my voice low and sultry. But, annoyingly, you're right. Is this better? Valen's eyes are still alight with hungry fire, and it takes him a good few seconds to respond.
No,
he growls as he begins to unbuckle his own clothes.
But, yes.
I smile as I watch him continue to undress. I'm blushing. I know I am. But I can't not appreciate the view and the experience of seeing him take off his clothes for the first time. In just his own underthings, Valen steps into the water, clinging to his own clothes. So, I say as I ignore the heat in my body and set to scrubbing my one pair of clothes clean. Is there anything that could be done to help the people of Starvis? Valen looks over at me, and I know his head isn't in this conversation yet. But he makes a determined look and sets to cleaning his own clothes.
The majority of people on Starvis don't want to be helped,
he says.
They're a suspicious people and don't like change. They heavily believe in tradition, but most of that is hunting and moving, searching for water, and going to war over it. If there was a timeline on the evolution of humankind, Starvis would be the slowest.
I rub the fine fabric of the uniform together, grinding out the dirt and dead skin cells. What if some form of civilization were introduced to them? Even if they weren't forced to live that way, wouldn't they want to evolve if they witnessed it? Valen shakes his head.
It isn't as if they're completely ignorant to the fact that there are other ways to live, that there are other, more advanced societies. The people are foolishly loyal to their planet and their ways. I truly think they're all willing to die there, to slowly kill each other off until the planet is empty. It's their way, their tradition.
I shake my head. It's just so savage, so brutal, I don't understand it. Valen doesn't say anything, and I can tell he's already thinking about something else. But it occurs to me, Valen isn't just the way he is because of Cerilius and Dominion. It stems from the very planet he was born on. He was brought into a world that valued hunting one another down, a planet that runs off the survival of the fittest. But not everyone is like that on Starvis, right? I ask. He takes a moment to respond as he shakes his trousers in the water.
No. Most, but not everyone. If a ship came and offered them safe passage off the planet, there are some who would take it.
I think about myself and how much I wanted to be rescued off my own planet. It wasn't for survival reasons, it was purely out of boredom and feeling too crowded. But I feel sorry for those people, those who are trapped because they have no way to change their circumstances. We should do something about that someday, I say, as I bring my clothes out of the water and begin wringing them out. I walk back to the shore and hang my clothes on a branch before going back in the water. Valen finishes washing his own clothes and hangs them out to dry before he returns to the water. He catches me staring, so instead of offering an explanation, I just smile and dip beneath the surface of the water. I run my fingers through my hair, wishing I had any kind of product to wash it with. While this might be some of the clearest water I've yet seen, I know there are fish living in it. I just have to not think about that. My hair floats around me, blonde locks that are getting longer and longer. I haven't cut it in nearly a solar. It's stretching halfway down my back now. I surface, combing my fingers through my hair. Valen stares at me, his own black hair dripping wet. His lips are slightly parted, and I watch as a droplet of water falls from his lower one. I can't stand the separation suddenly. I can't stand it a second longer. I need you to touch me, Valen, I say, but not out loud. My mind opens up to his, and I let every needy desire wash through me. The words slip out before my brain can give them permission to do so, but I find I'm not embarrassed by them. Come here. His eyes darken with hunger and heat as he walks toward me. His expression is so intense, so focused, like a predator. My own hunger growls in my stomach. I can't look away from him. The heat of his body warms the water around me as he stops in front of me. One of his hands comes to my hip, pulling me to him. His other hand comes up to cup my neck. My forehead touches his, and our eyes are locked together. A part of me sighs at the contact, relieved that the distance is gone. But it's not enough. I need his skin and my skin to be one, and I need there to be no water and no air between us. I want you, Valen, because my body wants yours, I confess, the breath of my words warming the space between our mouths. I want you, Valen, because you make me feel alive in a way I've never felt. I want you because I can feel it, this vastness we're capable of together. I want you because you possess a power I'm not afraid to be a part of. My hands rest on his chest, and I can feel his heart thundering in its cage. The water around us heats, and blue particles glow around us. But I hardly even notice.
I crave you because you are everything I didn't even know existed,
Valen says, and his words are hurried and desperate and rough.
I want you because you're relentlessly bold and brave. I need you, because if anyone in this galaxy can change everything, it's gonna be you, Nova.
He's breaking me, word by word. This version of myself where I am just one is cracking, and slowly our pieces are falling together. It scares me. I have no control over it. It's going to consume me, and I won't ever be able to walk away from it again. It's like two puzzle pieces finally snap into place, and everything is just right. I wrap my arms behind his head, and I can't wait another nanosecond longer when I pull his lips to mine. Our souls are exposed in that kiss. My soul slips into him, and his soul pours into me. We're a tangle of souls, intertwining so tightly the strands will never be separated again. I'm falling. I'm falling deep and into the darkness. I know this place. I've felt it before. This is that pit, the one that is endless and pitch dark. I'm not standing on the ledge of it anymore. I'm in it, free falling, but I'm not alone. Valen is right there with me. My legs wrap around Valen's waist, and I cling to him hard, desperate that no space will separate us. He turns, walking back up the shore, and carefully lays me back in the sand, right at the shallowest point of the water. He looks into my eyes for one moment. There's so much between us. There's a whole galaxy worth of weight. But neither of us say any words. I wrap a hand behind his head and bring his lips back down to mine. 6. 5 days. We spend 5 days in peaceful bliss. Hours spent hunting and foraging, exploring the beautiful planet we crash-landed on. We clean up the ship, organize it, go through all its cupboards and storage places. We sleep. We carry water from the lake to the ship. We begin to fall into a comfortable routine. And I don't spend one single minute trying to repair the ship. There's a little thought in the back of my head, one I feel too wicked to give acceptance to. There are hints of the future dancing on the edge of my memory. But then, a little over a week after we crashed here, I wake to find Valen watching me, his eyes intense and boring into me. It's a look that freezes me in place. He doesn't say anything, but his jaw is clenched tight. He's breathing hard, and I can tell he's barely containing words that aren't really his. "The pole is still there, isn't it?" I say, because I know. I can see it all over him. The need to return to Cerilius is killing him, and he's barely keeping a grip on his self-control. He lets another hard breath in and out, and nods, just once. "Come here," I say, sitting up in the bed and getting to my knees. "Lie down." He stays there, frozen, breathing in and out, hard and labored. So I take his hand, and I help him. I pull him across the bed. I put my hands on his shoulders and make him lie back on my bed. I kneel above his head. I take a deep breath, gathering myself. I find every strand of my strength. I cling to every desire I have, not just for us, but for him. I take control of my wish for the future. I press my fingertips to his temples. And I dive into his mind. Deeper, deeper. I dive into the dark. I battle past the screams, the twisted memories. I vanquish the many faces of Cerilius. I gather Neron as I plummet toward that dark center. I pull back my fist as I see it ahead. And I swing as we connect. The entire world around me explodes at the connection, and my vision flickers white, then blue, then black. and I feel myself collapse on the bed. I'm standing above an immaculate bed made of black wood, inlaid with Neron. Cerilius sleeps there, a relaxed look on his disgusting face. One arm is kinked above his head, the other hand rests on his chest. He breathes slow and deep. I hate him. I hate this man. I hate that he came to my home planet and destroyed everything. I hate that he owns the galaxy. I hate that he orders the death of so many people and doesn't ever feel an ounce of guilt over it. I hate what he did to Valen, for solars, that he stripped away his free will. I hate that he let his Kindori go into my mind. I hate Cerilius, to the point that hate isn't a strong enough word. I gather Neron around me. I tell it to form little sharp spikes, hundreds of them. They float in the air, poised and ready. Wake up, I say harshly. I kick his bed frame to make sure he jolts awake. He startles upright, nearly impaling himself dozens of times on my Neron. His wide, cinnamon-brown eyes find mine in the dim light. You're right about some things, I say, my voice low and dark. The galaxy can't use Neron in interplanetary warfare. We can't trust them to govern themselves and the Neron trade. But what you've done is conquer the galaxy with fear. There are about 100 different ways that this could be done better. Your turn is over. And it feels like relief when I release the Neron needles. They all dive, spearing into Cerilius's body, through his arms, his chest, through his skull. His eyes alight bright blue, and he tries to suck in a breath that gets caught in his chest. And then he slumps over sideways, falling out of the bed, and onto the floor, dead. A breath rips through my lips as I bolt upright, pulling out of Valen's grip. My heart is beating incredibly fast, so fast I almost feel like I'm having a heart attack. But as my eyes adjust, and I realize where I am, I turn to see Valen kneeling behind me, his hands still poised where they were just moments ago, his fingertips to my temples. Was that a vision? I stumble, tripping over my words. My brain can't sort through what is happening. I found the knot in your mind, Valen says, resting his hands on his thighs. It was there, clean and clear. I can't tell if I destroyed it all. I'm still breathing fast, but his words catch my thoughts in my throat. I killed him. I killed Cerilius. Cautiously, I let my thoughts go back to the details of the dream, to the feeling of the Neron, to the satisfaction of seeing him fall to the ground. The awe of watching his eyes change from cinnamon brown to Neron blue as I destroyed his body with the very thing he'd used to control the galaxy. I let myself sink further into the details. I let myself search for his life force. I take in all the details of his death. No screams. No flickering lights. And as I look back up to meet Valen's eyes, his face does not distort. Nothing, I say in a breath. There's nothing when I think about killing him. I twist, coming to my knees in front of Valen, awe and wonder filling me to the brim. Valen, you did it! He gives a little smile, almost seeming embarrassed at my praise. It wasn't very big. It wasn't very strong. I nod. The Kinduri only touched me once. I can't believe how sure their hold was on me, considering I didn't even realize it had happened at first.
"You're sure it's gone?"
he asks, reaching a hand up and brushing his thumb over my cheek. I think of it again, this time changing the way I kill Cerilius. I imagine slicing him right down the middle with my Neron staff. I nod as a wicked smile crosses my lips. "What about you?" I ask, excitement sparking in my heart. "Did I do it? Did I break the weight?" Valen lets out one breath and brushes his thumb over my lips just once.
"It's small, but there's still a little tug in the back of my brain. I think one more time and we'll eliminate it."
"Let's do it then," I say, my voice excited. I raise my hands up to press my fingers into his temples, but Valen catches my wrists, lowering my hands into his lap.
"You need to rest, Nova,"
he says, his voice calm and gentle.
"You're depleted after everything we just did. We can try again in the morning. There's no rush. I'm not trying to get the ship off the ground right now."
Disappointment sinks through me, but also acceptance. I am exhausted. My limbs feel like dead weights, and the rest of me just feels heavy, slow. "Fine," I say, sitting back on the bed. "I'll wait until morning, but I promise I'm going to break you free tomorrow." Valen offers a small smile.
"I know you will. You stay here. I'm gonna go make you some food."
He presses a kiss to my forehead before climbing out of the bed and walking toward the door. I lay down and watch him as he goes, wondering at how the galaxy's second most notorious man is taking care of me, like I'm something precious to him. 7. Valen's eyes slide open and lock right on mine. Slowly, he sits up, the morning light coming in through the window, illuminating all of his incredible features. He twists around, kneeling in front of me. He takes both of my hands in his, and I swear he could swallow me whole with his intense gaze. Instead, he swallows my mind. That door between us swings open, and it's like he grabs me and pulls me in, and I fall. Valen paints it all in great detail. We see him on Isroth. We see Cerilius sitting on his throne in the great hall. Valen stands before him, dressed in all black, staring at the man with mind-shattering intensity. And then Valen turns. Cerilius shouts at him, watching him with fear and shock. But Valen does not turn back. He walks down the hall. I see resolve and determination on his face. I see victory. Down the hall he walks, and he pushes open a set of double doors when he gets to the end of it. He steps outside, and there is ash falling from the sky. Because the presidential compound is on fire. We see Valen walk aboard the Black Arrow. He's alone. No crew. No soldiers. Just Valen. He goes to the command deck. He enters coordinates. The beautiful ship lifts off the ground just as Cerilius walks out of the burning compound, his furious face turned to the dark sky. Valen sets the ship to slipstream. And then there are the mountains. There are the trees. There is the lake. And standing on the shore, I see me, in Valen's arms, looking up at him like he is the sun, moon, and all the burning stars. And I feel peace, not just in my chest, but in Valen's. I feel freedom. Here, Grounded in the hull of a broken ship, I feel a warm hand caress my cheek. My eyes slide back open to meet a pair of neon blue ones. I see Valen.
"It's done,"
he breathes, and every one of his words fills me to the brim, and I spill over with hope.
"We're free, Nova. We're free."
Tears spill from my eyes as Valen kisses me. And I can feel it. This is the beginning of a whole new life. This is the beginning of a new age. The age of Valen and Nova Nero. 8. We hunt. We gather. We explore the valley and the mountains around us. We wash in the lake. We talk. We live. Another 6 days pass in the blink of an eye. Time goes by so fast when you're happy. We've just come in from a full day of gathering wood. It's obvious now that winter is going to arrive shortly. I don't know what we're doing, but over the past few days we've been gathering more and more food, stockpiling it in the kitchen of the ship. We've been taking containers down to the lake and filling the water storage tank in the ship. We've been gathering wood to burn for when it turns cold. We're preparing for winter. I'm still cold when I get out of the shower. We got the power to turn on today in the ship for an hour when we got back, just long enough for both of us to take our first hot shower since we crash-landed a few weeks ago. But we were outside for the entire day today, and neither of us has a coat. My teeth still chatter when I step out of the washroom and make my way through the sleeping quarters.
"Come here,"
Valen says. And I smile when I see that he's pushed 3 of the beds together, making one huge bed. He's piled all the blankets and pillows on it. He wears only his underthings and opens the blanket for me to climb in with him. I drop my towel on the floor just to the side of the bed and climb into the nest with him. His skin is warm, and I don't know why, but I blush slightly as I think about my bare legs against his bare legs, and my bare arms brushing his bare arms.
"You're like ice,"
Valen says, his brows furrowing as he rubs his hand up and down my arm, trying to warm me up. "Think you could stitch all these pelts together and make me a coat?" I say with a little shivering laugh.
"Of course,"
he says, and his tone makes me think he's wondering why he hadn't thought of it before. I laugh, but I turn my face and bury it into the base of his neck. I breathe his natural scent in, and I'm washed in comfort. I'm not the kind who likes being taken care of, I say softly, my words scratchy and tired. I've been known to be a knucklehead sometimes when it comes to my own independence, but I love how you take care of me. I love the team we make.
"I've never had anyone to take care of before,"
Valen says as he wraps his arms around me, pulling me in tight to him.
"I've never wanted to do anything for anyone besides myself, and what I had no choice but to do for Cerilius. I can't say it's natural, but it feels good."
I smile, marveling at how he's changed. He still has his darkness. I still feel that raw power and potential for violence in him. But it's shifted. He's no longer a weapon for someone else to wield. He is his own orchestrator now. I don't think the future is still the future, I say, as I curl into Valen's chest. I brush my hand from the base of his throat, down the valley of his chest, resting my hand at the lowest point. I think we've arrived at it. We're living that future we saw, Valen.
It's a startling revelation. I realize where we are and what it means. It means that the future was real. It means we are real. It means there's no going back. I roll over, lifting one leg over Valen and straddling his hips. I lace my fingers through his, and my eyes lock with his. Do you realize what we've done? I say, my voice low and quiet. Do you realize that we changed the future? Valen lifts his chin, never breaking our gaze. I don't think I even care about the future anymore. I don't want to be anywhere but right here, in the present.
He makes me smile. I lower my head until my lips are pressed to his. I release Valen's hands, and they come to my lower back, and a thrill flashes through me at him touching my bare skin. I don't ever want to leave here, I confess, my breath flooding Valen. My chest brushes his, and I'm alive with electricity. Valen brushes my hair back, lacing his fingers into it.
We can stay,
he says, and his words come out almost like a revelation.
There's nothing making us leave.
I shift back slightly, staring into his eyes. They're so bright, such a contrast to his pale skin and black hair. They burn with sincerity. We could stay. The words slip over my lips in a reverent surprise. Valen nods, and I see the thoughts turning behind his eyes.
No one knows we're here. No one can come after us.
I'm a complicated knot of emotions at the thought. There are people out there who are wondering where we are, if we're alive. Cerilius, all of Dominion. Every person in the galaxy knows who Valen Nero is. They will wonder. Zane will wonder. Edan will look for me, if they're still alive. Zara and everyone on Calypso will go crazy wondering what became of me. But I think about everything that has happened over the past solar, everything that has gone wrong, all the times I tried and failed to make a difference. I think of the cost of trying to change things. I think about my father and his slit throat. It's more than I can handle. Everything that needs to happen is so much more than two people can change. We could stay. I say the words again.
This could be home, Nova,
Valen says, once more brushing my hair back.
This could be our life. This could be our start. Right now. This could be us. Now.
Emotions well up in my eyes. After everything that has happened, after all the struggle and hurt, I need this. Here is beauty. Here I'm seeing me. Here, the reality is us. I love you. The words whisper over my lips, and my heart expands to the size of my entire body as I breathe the words. My entire body hums with their truth. My entire life has been a struggle to find who I am and what would fill me up and make me whole. But I found it now. I'm whole here with you, Valen. This is me. This is who I always wanted to be, here, with you. Valen sits up, gripping my hips and sliding me into him, not an inch of space between our bodies. My barely covered breasts press into his bare chest. His left hand cups my backside, keeping me tight and close to him. His right hand runs up the center of my chest, wrapping around the back of my neck. His eyes are fire, as he looks up into my own.
I would burn down the entire galaxy for you,
he promises.
I would take out an entire class fleet to get to you, Nova. I would destroy the entirety of Garaloon to save you. You are all that matters. I am yours alone, from now to the end of my life.
His fingers slide into my hair once more, and he guides my lips forward until they touch his, breathing the same air.
I love every atom of you, Nova.
I lean forward, pushing him back against the bed, and I meet him inch for inch, held in his arms, like it's the most natural thing in the galaxy I know. This is me. This is us. And this was something bigger than either of us. This was the doing of the universe, pushing us together faster and harder until we collided with an explosion of fate. 9. I think I'm underwater at first. There are waves circling all around me, white and blue ripples. They're strong. They crash over me, over and over and over. There are bodies here with me too. Men and women, even children. They're dead. They must be dead because none of them are moving, trying to get to the surface. They look out, their eyes open, frozen, fixed. Some of their mouths are still open, as if they were submerged and instantly killed the second they went beneath the surface. It's like a still life portrait, but a horrifying one. As I look around me, as I look closer, I realize I'm breathing just fine. None of their hair is floating as if they're in the water. And what I thought was water around me is pulsing. Suddenly, I feel the power. I feel the call to my blood. I feel so slam good. I feel alive, awake. This isn't water I'm drowning in. It's Neron. We're consumed with it. It's overtaking. It's crushing us. We're trapped by it. I let my eyes slide closed, and I take in a breath. I raise my hands, and I pull. I summon. I collect. My insides begin to vibrate, faster and harder with each moment. My breath pulls in and out, faster, as my hands, my stomach, my heart grows hotter and more violent. But I don't let it go. I reach out to every bit of that Neron. I claim it as mine. I tell it that I am its master. It must obey me. The tremors shake not only me, but the ground at my feet. They echo throughout the entire planet. There's a great roaring sound, deep and powerful. It grows with intensity with every passing millisecond. I swear I'm shaking the entire sector as I grab hold of the Neron. Something snaps. For half a second, the world falls silent. And then all of the Neron explodes around me, launching into the universe. And I collapse to the ground, even as all those who were frozen around me rise. I jolt upright in the bed, raising my hands to catch the Neron that is spearing through space. But there isn't any. The room is dim, hints of the sun only beginning to think about waking. I'm sitting in the bed, in the sleeping quarters. I'm barely dressed. Valen lays to my side, dead asleep. My heart is still pounding when I hold a hand over it. My brain goes back to the dream, to the feeling of power that radiated through me, to the waves of Neron that were consuming everything. and then the darkness as it took me over. I've had visions of the future before. They always leave me with this shaking sense of overwhelming emotion. There's always this spark in the back of my throat. The same spark that is there now. I've never, ever had a vision of the future that didn't have Valen in it. I look down at him now, to his peaceful, sleeping face, and I just know he's not seeing what I saw. And it makes my stomach sick. We've decided we're in this together. We're never separating. Whatever the future holds, it holds for the both of us. So why was I alone? Where was I? And why wasn't Valen there with me? My hands are shaking. My throat feels tight. I roll out of the bed, being careful not to jostle it. I don't want to wake Valen. I don't want him to see me like this. As I walk across the room to the washroom, I try to reason with myself. It isn't logical that Valen and I will be in each other's physical presence every minute of every day. It probably means nothing, the fact that I didn't see him there with me. We still have to lead our lives. We're still individual people. I pull my uniform on and brush through my hair, telling myself to forget about it. Valen still sleeps when I walk back out, so I decide to leave him to rest and head into the command deck. The sky is still dark outside, and when I look out, I only see the peak of the mountain beginning to have a silhouette as the sun makes its way around the globe. I can't hear anything through the thickness of the ship, but I can see the vague form of a bird as it soars through the air. I see a beast dart through the clearing, heading back into the trees. Alone in the command deck, I wrap my arms around myself, hugging tight. We've been on this planet for weeks now. In this entire time, I've never felt alone or lonely. I've always had Valen. But right now, there's a yawning pit of dread in my stomach. It's growing bigger and bigger, and I feel like I'm about to fall in it. I was doing something big in that vision. I was doing something important, something life-changing. So why wasn't Valen there? Why was I alone? I squeeze my eyes closed, searing, clawing through the vision, looking for any sign that he was there, that maybe he was just out of my sight. But I don't see him. I can't feel him there. I really am alone. A feeling that I've never felt takes hold of me. Fear, mixed with anxiety, laced with panic and dread. It means something. My heart screams. It means something. It means something. Nova! Valen's voice cuts through my brain and through the command deck with a panicked yell. I twist around, finding Valen standing there, fear and worry making his eyes bright in the dim light. He takes a step forward, fully dressed, his brows furrowing together. He crosses the space, and the fear crawls its way through me as I grab his tunic and pull him to me, wrapping my arms tightly around him. "What's wrong?" he asks, holding me tight. I shake my head, not knowing how to explain what's rampaging through me right now. I squeeze him closer and tighter, wishing I could just combine us into one being so we could never possibly be separated. "Swear to me that you'll never leave me," I say, looking up at him, knowing my eyes are full of panic and dread. "Swear that nothing will ever happen to you leaving me alone." My heart is thundering faster and faster, making me feel desperate. "Swear it, Valen! Swear it!" "I swear, Nova," he says, his brows furrowed so deep, shadows are casting over his beautiful face. He's filled with confusion, and I know I'm starting to scare him. "I mean it, Valen," I say, emotion shaking my voice. "Swear that you're never going to leave me alone." And I find that door between our minds, and I yank it open, pouring everything I'm feeling right now into him. I let him feel my panic and my despair at the idea of him being gone, of being on my own, doing everything I know we have to do on my own. I let him feel the emptiness at him not being there. I let him fall, be suspended in space. He sucks in a shallow breath, the action physically rolling through his whole body.
"Never, Nova,"
he breathes, nearly panting after what I just put him through.
"I will never leave you. I swear I will always be here."
"But what if," I say, nearly sobbing, "what if you can't control it? What if you're forced, or if you change your mind, or—"
"Never,"
Valen says, his jaw clenching tight, his hold on me tightening.
"I swear at this moment that binds me forever that my loyalty is to you, Nova. I swear that my being, every one of my abilities, is for you, for us. Everything from this moment forward is for what you and I are and can be."
Emotions rip through me, like I'm in the ocean being tossed about by the undertow. I look into Valen's eyes, tears welling in my eyes, but not falling.
"Nova,"
Valen says in a breath. He takes my hands in his, lacing our fingers together. He holds them between our chests.
"The past is dead."
He shakes his head, his eyes burning with conviction.
"It no longer exists. This is what is real. Right now. You and I. All that matters is what there is from this point forward. I swear my future to you."
I feel heat generating between our hands. I look down to see every vein in Valen's hands and forearms glowing with Nero. There's a tingle along every place our hands touch. A prod. A request. So I accept it. I feel it. Physical and real. I let the Nero coursing through Valen's blood into my body, and I let it flow through my veins. I summon everything in me. I call my own Nero, and I let it flow from me to Valen. "From now on," I say, my voice hoarse and low, "it is you and me. No matter what it takes, I swear my future to you." Power is radiating from us, flowing between my body and his. It's shared now, interlaced, never ever to be separated. He is in me, and I in him. We're forever bound together, from now until the end of our days. I rise up onto my toes, and Valen lowers his head. And with a kiss, we seal a vow more permanent and real than any other oath spoken in the universe. 10. I stand at the opening of the ship, watching as the first few snowflakes float to the ground. We spent the last 3 days collecting as much food as we could. We have a variety of root vegetables, a small stash of fruit, and Valen has been hunting quite a bit to get enough meat to last us. I crouch and pick up the pillowcase I used to haul more vegetables, pausing. My eyes trace down my arm, to my wrist, to my fingertips, and then look over at the other. Our veins glowed neon blue the day Valen and I made our vow to one another. but they never stopped when we released each other. All through that day and through the night, the veins in our hands, wrists, and forearms glowed brilliant blue with Neron. Even now, 3 days later, my veins still glow bright as ever, as do Valen's. I have to wonder if they're ever going to stop, or if they'll stay brilliant and bright so long as Valen and I keep our vow. I grip the sack and walk back into the ship, touching the keypad to make the hatch close. In the kitchen, Valen prepares the meat, preserving it with some method he learned on Starvis to make it last lunars if necessary. It's a simple existence, and maybe in a few lunars I'll be sick of it and get bored and I'll be infuriated at eating the same food over and over. But for now, I'm content.
I think we should build a shelter if the weather doesn't turn too quick,
Valen says, looking up at me as I add my harvest to the store in the kitchen. If we don't go overboard, we could probably survive off this for nearly 4 lunars. I smile. It wasn't here, but we did that exact thing in one of my visions.
Building a house?
He asks, his eyes boring into me. I nod, grabbing a piece of cooked meat and taking a bite. He offers a small smile, but he doesn't say anything more. It's an unspoken agreement. Neither of us asks about the futures each other saw. I don't want to tell him about my visions where we're working for Cerilius, helping him conquer and destroy the galaxy. I don't know what Valen has seen, but I don't really want to know. We're making our own future. When he's finished, Valen and I go to the command deck and look out the viewport. A strong wind has picked up, and now there is snow blowing sideways. It's picked up in thickness and intensity. Fat, fluffy flakes are beginning to collect at the bases of the trees, against the faces of rocks, on the side of our ship. Winter has come, and I have to wonder how bad it will get. It isn't comforting that the ship's power will only turn on for a few minutes at a time, here and there. Unless we're fully going to build a shelter outside the ship with a fireplace and a chimney, we can't build a fire inside this ship. We run the possibility that we'll freeze to death inside here. Every morning when we wake up, there is frost coating the windows in the sleeping quarters. My nose is frozen, and it's torture having to get out from beneath the covers and each other's warm bodies. So I go back into the mechanical room. I slip into the mind of a mechanic and engineer. The electrical board is complicated, the most advanced I've ever seen. I have to go through it one wire at a time, tracing where it goes, what it does. One by one, I check them, fixing the damage I find, replacing what was fried in our punch through space. I find core connections that were melted in our jump. And if I were anyone else in the galaxy, we would be in trouble. There aren't spares on the ship to repair them. But I can wield Neron, and there is Neron in everything. I reshape the connections. Every minute I am down in the belly of the ship, my heart beats faster and faster. Fix it. Hurry up. You have so much to do. You have to get back. No, I argue with myself. Everything off this planet is bad. Everything away from here is too much. I'm happy here. This is my real life. Here. This is my new beginning. But some little, ugly creature gnaws at the bottom of my stomach, filling me up with guilt and anticipation. Every day, we check the snow level out the windows. In the first 3 days, we get 3 feet. We don't wander away from the ship when we open the hatch. We take buckets and buckets of snow, let them melt, and add them to our water supply. Within 7 days, there is too much snow for the hatch to open. Going out and building a shelter is no longer an option. We're living in the ship for the rest of the winter, however long that might last on this planet. With nothing else to do while trapped in the ship, Valen commits to helping me while I work on repairs. And I learn I'm not a very patient person when someone is in my workspace. I really do try to be patient while his hands do the wrong things, get me the wrong tools, mess things up. But in the end, I get snappy and annoyed, and we have our first fight since deciding to be together.
Nova, I'm just trying to help.
Valen growls through his clenched teeth. I understand that, I respond, letting out a clearly annoyed huff through my nostrils. But you've just twisted those wires. You heard that click? That was a short, and now it's going to take me at least an hour to fix it. I see his jaw clench, all the muscles and sinews under his skin straining. He drops the tools at my feet and turns and walks out of the room, closing the door loudly behind him. I actually sigh a little in relief when he's gone. We might be the only 2 people on this planet, but I haven't had any alone time in a lunar and a half. I think we're getting a little cabin fever. Something in the back of my brain says I should feel bad right now for being so snappy, but the bigger part of me is relieved. Now I can get the job done right. It really only takes me 10 minutes to untwist the wires, to my surprise. When that's finished, I pry up the metal plate that covers the next set of circuits I need to check. But instead of circuits, I see piping. Clear, flexible tubes run along the belly of the ship, going back toward the rear of the ship, to where the thrusters are. There are 8 of them. The one in the middle, the thickest one, is broken clean in half. Neron leaks out of it in a blue mist. Slag, I swear, realizing we've been breathing in pure, vaporized Neron for a lunar and a half. I wrap my hand around the tube, stopping the flow. Squeezing my eyes closed, I find the Neron in the tube. I imagine it stitching back together, forming a smooth, solid line, as perfect as the day it was manufactured. Beneath my skin, I feel it forming back together. And the moment I finish and feel the Neron circulating throughout the ship the way it should, the power kicks. Lights flick on. The heaters engage. The entirety of the ship hums with power. And I feel the Neron in the core jump to life, ready and willing.
What did you do?
Valen's voice cuts through the ship, both annoyed and surprised. Found the main problem, I call in surprise and excitement. We had a major Neron leak. We're lucky we weren't constantly stuck in the future from how much we've been breathing in. Valen appears in the doorway, his hands braced on the opening. There's still a hint of darkness in his eyes, but he gives a little smile.
Guess you really are the best in the galaxy.
I smile back, and all my annoyance from earlier disappears. I think I can probably get the communication system back up and going tomorrow. And both our smiles falter at that, because we know what that means. That means we'll be tested on our willpower and desire to stay on this planet, our heads buried in the sand. It means we'll have to make a decision. That night, Valen and I lay in our huge, pushed-together bed. But our backs are turned to each other. We're both pretending to be asleep. It's like a physical thing, the thoughts turning in our heads like grinding wheels. Over and over, we're both evaluating, deciding if it's worth it to get communications back up and going. What will we hear if they work again? What will have gone wrong in the universe, making us feel that we have to get involved once more? While the last lunar and a half have been bliss, have been exactly what Valen and I needed, the coming of winter and being trapped inside the ship has been trying. We've both been on edge the last few days. We've been snappy. Will we really survive the next few lunars, being trapped with just each other, day in and day out? Is that what we really want? Is that really the best use of our time? My stomach twists in uncertainty as I keep thinking through it all, over and over. My brain is tired, but I can't stop analyzing everything, logistical and emotional. Life here is simple, but my mind and my heart are still a mess. 11. Wires and electrical currents, connections to internal satellites, amplifying relays and long-range signals. The communication system is the most complicated part about this ship. I think the surge of Neron when we punched through space nearly melted everything through. I feel like I'm rebuilding everything from scratch, having to reform every connection and wire. Valen doesn't say a word to me as I work throughout the day. He walks by once an hour or so, pacing. I feel the uncertainty, the questioning in him. He doesn't know how he feels about this either. All throughout the day, I've felt this rising sense of more building inside of me. This isn't all you were meant for, a little voice in my head whispers, and it sounds a little like Evander Nero. I shove the voice out and concentrate on what I do know. I know I can fix this communications transmitter. It's just going to take me some time. Around midday, Valen brings me a plate of food, and I offer a small little smile as thanks. We've fought before, disagreed on things in the most essential of ways, but never over something simple. Never while we've been declared to one another. He asks if I need anything, and I tell him no and thank him. He smiles and walks out, leaving me to work. So I keep working, one wire at a time, one panel and repair at a time. Just before dinner time, I tighten the last screw, fastening the last wire in place. I climb back to my feet, taking a deep breath as I look at the red reset button at the bottom of the panel. This is it. If this doesn't work, I have no idea what the problem is. If this does work, we will be connected to the rest of the galaxy once more. Valen? I say, raising my voice loud enough to be heard. A moment later, he steps into the doorway. I look up at him, all of my insides twisted up into knots. Does Dominion track its ships? I ask. Of course, he says, his eyes flicking to the electrical panel. But I can't say for sure that they will have activated or installed a tracker on this one since it wasn't in service yet. I swallow, nodding once. With everything I've been fixing, I haven't seen evidence of any kind of a tracking device, but I can't say for sure there isn't one. I look back at the panel. There's a chance, when I activate the communications system, that it will send a signal back to Dominion. They might instantly know where we are. Valen takes a step forward, standing behind me. He puts his hands on my shoulders. If we really are somewhere near the W sector, it would be lunars before Dominion could get to us. We have some time. We'll know if they're coming after us. I look back at him over my shoulder, and what neither of us says is that if we turn this on, it means the decision is made, that we won't stay here on this planet forever. It means that this isn't really home. It means that, eventually, we will probably have to leave.
Tell me what you want to do,
Valen says quietly, looking into my eyes.
Whatever you decide, I'm with you, Nova.
My heart is thundering and my stomach is twisting in undoable knots. My palms are sweating. But as I turn and look back at the reset button, my heart knows. I reach forward and I press it. There's a beautiful, clean, mechanical whirring. I nearly push Valen over as I turn and storm out the door, heading for the command deck. I hear the heavy sound of Valen's boots as he follows after me. When I reach the deck, the hollow screen is active, blinking that it is rebooting. I stand in front of it, crossing my arms over my chest, gnawing on my thumbnail as I wait for it to finish. Valen stands at my side, in full soldier stance, feet wide, hands held behind his back, shoulders rolled back, face grim and serious. The hollow screen flashes just once, and then it displays everything it should. We have full signal. My heart leaps into my throat, and my stomach bottoms out. Block any outgoing signal, I say, my voice harsh and curt. Valen was already on it before the words finished leaving my mouth. He taps and clicks and digs into the information of the ship.
We were broadcasting a location,
Valen says, tapping a few more things.
but I've got it disabled. I don't think there was time for it to send a full location. Dominion might receive a general idea within a few sectors, but it would take them lunars to scan everywhere for our location.
You sure it's blocked? I ask. And there's 1,000,000 pounds of fear settling into my stomach. Because if Dominion finds us again, they can use their Kinduri on us again. And I don't know if we'll survive a second time.
I'm sure,
Valen says, with a solemn nod. I nod too, telling myself to trust him. Then how about we figure out where the void we are? I reach forward, pulling up the locator screen. It shows a map of the galaxy. There's a pulsing white circle that blinks 5 times before it starts narrowing in on our location. Closer and closer, and tighter it casts our range. Until it finally zooms in on the V sector, right on the edge before it crosses over into the W sector. We really did punch a hole through space, I marvel. I shake my head. I still don't understand how that's possible. Valen shakes his head.
Neither do I.
8 sectors in a matter of minutes is just impossible, I say, still staring at the blinking dot that is us. That's nearly like teleportation. At the word, Valen and I both look at each other, our eyes wide. That's not possible for Nero, is it? I ask in awe. Valen shakes his head and gives a little shrug.
I have no idea. I've never heard of it, but I've never talked to another Nero until you. You haven't heard of it either?
I shake my head. Never. It has to be an accident with the ship. I think we just consider ourselves lucky that we weren't obliterated in the process. Valen nods, but I can tell by the look in his eyes that he's still wondering about the possibility. I sink into a chair and pull up all the news outlets, setting the filter to the major headlines over the past lunar and a half. For 2 hours, Valen and I scour the articles, searching for any mention of our names. I comb carefully, searching everywhere I can for Zane and Edan and Nimia. But we don't find anything. Dominion hasn't breathed a word about Valen leaving. They've said nothing about me. As far as I can tell, they didn't capture any of my crew. There has been nothing major happen since we left Isroth. It doesn't even seem possible, I say, my brows furrowing as I shake my head. Slag couldn't stop hitting the fan before we escaped. Something was constantly do or die before we took off. And now there's just been nothing happening since then. Valen reaches over and takes my hand, a move to try and calm me.
It seems unlikely, but it isn't like the galaxy revolves around us. Life has to keep marching on, even if we disappear.
I actually huff a laugh. With a sigh, my eyes roll to the roof of the ship. Enough slag happens all at once and you kind of forget that fact. Valen tugs on my hand, pulling me over and into his lap. I curl up into him, instantly relaxing and realizing just how stressed out I've been over the last few days.
The world hasn't ended in the last lunar and a half,
he says quietly, talking into my hair.
I don't really know what that means, but I guess we really have to decide. Now what?
The question lingers heavy in the air. I search deep down in myself for an answer. Now what? 12. I'm looking at the insides of the ship once more, trying to figure out how the void we jumped through space so quickly. Yes, this ship is the most advanced in the galaxy. Yes, it's complicated and I don't fully understand how it works yet. But Cerilius once told me that it could travel from the N sector to the A sector in 8 days, which is wicked fast. But we traveled from the N sector to the V sector in a matter of minutes. My eyes scan the insides of the ship. How is that possible? I breathe out. Maybe I haven't fully adjusted to life here on this empty planet, because it takes me a few minutes before my brain tells me I shouldn't be hearing another female voice. My heart jumps into my throat, and I dart out of the mechanical room, looking both ways down the hall. The voice is quiet, coming from the command deck. I summon Nero, letting it flow freely around my hands as I creep down the hall, my knees slightly bent as I walk. Just as it seems we're free of the one and only one in the galaxy, the game has to change. Goosebumps wash over my skin as I step onto the command deck and realize I know this voice. It's coming from the speakers set up around the deck. There is no other woman on this planet. That voice is Arden Black, of the Black Hole of Truth. Valen? I yell, knowing whatever she has to say, it's important. 2 seconds later, I hear his booted feet running down the hall. Dominion isn't talking about it, but the rumors are flying. Arden's voice comes through the speakers. My Connect link isn't working yet, but I had set the ship to capture the next spacecast she ran. Dominion is crushing any word on the systems as fast as anyone can post it. But Valen Nero has disappeared. Some say he has left Dominion and forsaken Cerilius. There are rumors that he and a few others fought their way off Isroth, and they all disappeared without a trace. My eyes meet Valen's, and we stare at each other with wide, surprised eyes. Everyone on Isroth works for Dominion. Everyone there should be loyal to Cerilius and the company. But if word is getting out about what happened on Isroth, it means that someone either leaked the information to Arden, or she has a mole on the planet. 12-3? I ask, knowing we're drawing the same conclusions.
Cerilius would never suspect her, so it's possible,
Valen says, cutting his words fast and short when Arden begins speaking again. For just a second there, I had hope, she says, her voice clear. Can you imagine how it would change everything? If Cerilius didn't have Valen Nero, would he be able to conquer planets like he does? If Valen Nero has really left Dominion, Cerilius's iron fist is so much weaker. She pauses, and I hear her take a deep breath, and I know whatever she says next, I'm not going to like it. For just a second, I thought the galaxy stood a chance, she says, and I hear her voice sink. But I got word this morning that 4 days ago, a young boy leveled 4 buildings when Dominion soldiers tried to take him and his family to the mines on Corpillion. The Neuron blast killed 3,000 people, and it was a complete accident. No. My stomach sinks. My hands actually shake, and moisture instantly pools in my eyes. Another Nero child has been found on Corpillion, Arden says, and he was immediately taken by Dominion to Cerilius. Valen crosses the space, smacking his hands down on the desk. He breathes hard, his nostrils flaring. With relentless intent, he listens. The child was 8 solars old, Arden says. His family is dead, and now he gets to spend the rest of his life as Cerilius's prisoner. And now I have to ask, what do we know about Valen Nero's beginning? Did he ever have a choice? Or did he start out just like this little boy? My eyes shift to Valen, and I wish I could scream for all the universe to hear. Yes, this is how Cerilius does this. These children never had any choice. The depths of his evil knows no bounds. For just a second I had hope, Arden says, her voice growing quieter. But I don't know if I want to live in a galaxy anymore where this happens to our children, where our tiny shreds of hope get scooped up and taken away before they even have a chance to become people. The spacecast ends, and we're left with deafening silence. My heart beats, slow, hard pulses in my chest. I never saw this coming. I never would have guessed it. This is something none of us could have anticipated. Valen,
Is the ship ready to fly?
He cuts me off, his voice sharp and strong. Very nearly, I say, my brain struggling to keep up with the twists and surprises of the day.
How long until we can get in the air?
He says, standing straight, and for a moment, I'm stunned at his height, his dominating presence. This is the Valen the galaxy knows. I have to build something that can stabilize the ship so we don't do what happened before, maybe 2 days? Valen nods, every one of his features grave and sharp and determined.
Good.
I step forward, gripping his tunic in my hands. I look up into his blue eyes, and something in me swells with pride. We can't let this happen to that boy, I say, my words low and dark. We can't let Cerilius do to that boy what he did to you. Valen lets out hard breaths through his nostrils, in and out, and I can feel it. He's barely in control right now. We will stop this, I say, as I cup my palm to his cheek. We're fighters, the both of us. We always have been, and we always will be. The past few weeks have been the best in my life. But you and I were never fated to sit on the sidelines in peace. This is what we were designed for. Valen pulls me into him, his eyes on fire with conviction. And in them, I also see appreciation. He lowers his lips, and he kisses me like it's the last time he'll ever get to do so outside of war. 13. When I wake up the next morning, I roll over to see Valen staring up at the ceiling. There's a deep furrow between his brows. His hands are tucked behind his head. He's deep in thought. "What are you thinking about?" I ask, resting a hand on his bare chest. He doesn't answer me right away, and I can almost feel his tangled thoughts like they're a tangible thing in the air. He breathes slow, hard. His vivid blue eyes don't break their accusation of the ceiling.
"The only way this ends is if we kill Cerilius,"
Valen eventually says.
"But it's nearly impossible to get him with his armies, and then there are the Kinduri."
It's the Kinduri that really worry me. I could have killed Cerilius lunars ago if it hadn't been for them getting in my mind.
"The numbers aren't in our favor, Nova,"
he says. He places one of his hands over mine, holding it firmly to his chest.
"A group of Nero tried to take Dominion out solars ago, and they failed. If just you and I go in there, I don't know if we'll win."
I hate that he just said the words. I hate that he doubts. But that's the reckless part of me. I always overestimate myself. Us. "But we have to do something," I say, and I hate how desperate my voice sounds. Valen turns his head, looking at me.
"I mean that we need help. We can't do this just the two of us. But if we could get help, we might stand a chance."
"What do you mean?" I ask, my brows furrowing. Once more, Valen takes a moment to respond, and I see the gears turning behind his eyes.
"I think the galaxy needs to know what Cerilius did to me. I think they need to know my story. And if they know that I am not the only Nero left, if you came forward too, if you gave them hope, I think it might give people courage. I think you could rally the galaxy."
My heart starts beating faster and faster at his words. I feel something rising in me, filling me, ready to drown me in the most exhilarating way. I correct him, we could rally the galaxy. It's hard to read Valen's expression, but mostly I think that's fear, uncertainty. This means his entire life will change. His trajectory will change, and he can never go back.
"I think we need to contact Arden Black,"
he says instead. And my stomach jumps into my throat.
"The galaxy listens to her. Those who want to hope, who want to think there's a chance at rebelling against Dominion, they listen to her."
He stops, staring intently into my eyes.
"I think we need to contact Arden, demand an interview, and tell the galaxy the truth."
My entire body is going to break apart from the force of my heart thundering in my chest.
"And we rally the troops, and we go at Cerilius with an army pulled from the entirety of the galaxy."
The breath leaves my chest in one big whoosh. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. And it came from Valen, despite everything. I lean forward, pressing my lips to his, relishing in how right everything feels in this impossible moment of time. "Let's do it." I breathe into his lips. We don't get to Arden Black directly, but we get to people who claim to be her people. After 2 hours of vetting each other, we set up a time. We're to meet in 2 days, on an asteroid belt in the Q sector. So I get to work, finishing up my newest design. It's quite simple, really. I create a stand in the middle of the command deck, but instead of being made of metal or titanium, it's made of solid Neron. Valen pulled enough of it from the earth outside to create a 3-foot-tall stand with 2 handles to grip at the top. The base of it goes to those tubes that flow through the ship, connecting to the core affixed to the top of this beast. It takes 2 people to fly this ship now, a pilot who can navigate the ship, and a Nero who can keep the Neron controlled. It's risky. We have no way to test it other than to make a jump into space, but it's our best bet. The morning before we are supposed to meet Arden, I open the hatch of the ship. A mountain of snow falls inside, but I push my way through it, climbing to the top of the ship. The roof of the ship is clear. The Neron core running along its length is warm and melts the snow immediately. But everywhere around me, the snow towers deep and pure white. Shivering and frozen, I look around at the beautiful landscape that surrounds me. There aren't any birds flying overhead anymore. There are no more animals tromping through the trees. Only the lonely mountains and the towering treetops. It's not the same peaceful paradise we crash-landed upon. It's almost as if the planet itself is telling us to close this chapter and move on. The crunch of snow pulls my eyes to the hatch, and I see Valen struggle to climb up and join me. He slips and slides along the surface of the core, slick with water as it melts the snow that starts falling once more. Finally, he stands at my side.
Is it time?
He asks, wrapping his arms around me to keep both of us warm. It's time, I say with a little nod. As far as I can tell, everything is ready. Valen nods, and there's so much weight in it. For a moment, he's quiet too, looking at this place we've been surviving in for weeks. I take a moment to appreciate what we had here, the peace, the opportunity. So much changed here. A lot didn't. But it marked a new beginning. It was the birthplace of a revolution. We need a name for our ship, I say.
Our ship, huh?
He questions, his words warming my skin. I nod, a little smile forming on my lips. Cerilius never finished it. No one but us can fly it. We've lived on it for weeks. I'm not giving it back. Valen huffs a laugh, his grip on me tightening. We take a few contemplative moments.
What about deliverance?
Valen suggests. I consider it for a few moments and give a nod. I think it sounds perfect. Valen presses a kiss to my temple, and I take a deep breath, knowing it's time. So together, we make our way off the ship. We climb back inside and close the hatch. I vaporize the snow on the floor so we don't have any damage. Together, we double-check that everything is secure, that all the mechanics have been put back in place. We check that we have everything we need. It's an easy task. We came here with nothing. We're leaving here with only some food and water. So together, we go back to the command deck. Valen inputs the location, zeroing in on the asteroid belt. The ship does its calculations, estimating it will take us 5 days to arrive. We'll never be able to rely on its estimates. Even this ship doesn't understand its own capabilities.
Are you ready?
Valen asks. I walk to the Neron control, wrapping my hands around the grips. Instantly, I'm filled with this amazing feeling. I feel calm, cool, in control. I nod. I'm ready. Valen stands at the commands, his hands going to the controls. He's the more experienced pilot. He's flown the Black Arrow all over the galaxy. This is natural to him. So he pilots the ship. I control the Neron.
Let's go,
he says, pressing a control. The ship hums, instantly gently rising into the air, lifting off the ground. I'm flooded with a surge of power. It rolls through my body like a wave of goosebumps. It feels amazing. Carefully, Valen pilots us higher, maneuvering and positioning. Carefully, he monitors the systems.
We're stable, he reports. No signs of loss of air pressure. Metrics are working. Everything looks as it should.
I smile, letting myself feel proud for a few moments.
You did it, Nova,
Valen says, and as I look back at him, I see that incredible smile, the one I only get to see every so often. It reaches all the way down past my heart, into my soul. We rise higher and higher, and it's as smooth as water. The readings measure as we approach the atmosphere of this planet that never even had a name, and then rise up out of it. It's dark in space. It's cold.
Are you ready?
Valen asks again. The Neron in my hands is humming, ready and willing. I'm ready. Valen punches in the command, and white-hot fire floods from the Neron through my entire body, exploding my awareness with power. The ship launches forward, but as I harness the power, as I concentrate on the core, we don't shake and quake like the first time we punched through space. We sing forward. Expecting the force, we're able to stabilize ourselves. Faster and faster until I can hardly breathe, we fire through space. My heart is racing. I think the skin has burned off of my hands and they're nothing but bone anymore as the Neron grows hotter. My entire body is glowing neon blue, and my hair floats up, suspended.
Nova!
Valen yells, his voice strained. I've got this, I call back, even as my heart threatens to explode. I've got this! Faster, faster, faster! I keep expecting the ship to rattle to pieces, to tear itself apart, or obliterate into dust. But it's smooth and quiet. And then there's a pop. We slide forward, losing speed until at last we come to a halt. The breath rips from my chest as the Neron stand cools, the glow fading from brilliant to bright. Are you okay? I gasp, turning to Valen. He's standing with his hands braced on the control deck, his eyes wide.
Yes. You?
I nod, looking down at myself. The veins from my forearms to my fingertips are still glowing from our vow, but my skin hasn't been burned from my body like I thought. I'm okay. Where are we? Valen pulls up the map, and a white dot blinks, displaying our location.
We're in the Q sector,
Valen says in awe. Just where we aimed for. Traveled in a matter of minutes. It's just so insane, I say, shaking my head. Valen, this ship is going to be incredible in the cause. Valen nods, but he's distracted. He narrows the coordinates, and I feel the Neron in my hands heat as we begin moving forward once more. There, just up ahead, I see the asteroid belt. We aim for the biggest one, huge and hulking. The asteroid rotates, constantly twisting through space. And there, we see a Class 4 ship come into view.
Carefully we land, and a signal beeps through to us.
"You really came,"
a familiar female voice says.
"I am very anxious to hear what you have to say. Come aboard."
Valen and I exchange looks, impressed at how easy this is. But we go to the hatch, changing into protective gear and hooking up to oxygen for the short walk. We enter the airlock, waiting impatiently as it prepares to let us out into space. I've never walked in zero gravity before, never been outside a ship where there wasn't an atmosphere. It should be an experience of its own. But I have no time to enjoy it. We step immediately into the airlock of the other ship and wait for the air to fill the space. And then a hatch opens, and we step into the hull of the ship. We yank our helmets off, stripping off the suits. There, waiting for us, stands a woman, flanked by 7 men and women who look like they could kill us with their varying degrees of deadly looks. Their deadly looks are only outdone by the deadly Neron weapons they point at the two of us. But there in the middle is a woman. Her eyes are full of wonder and fear, but she's trying very hard to mask both right now. She's petite, average height. She has soft, curly brown hair and warm brown eyes. Her cheekbones are sharp, and her hands are small and delicate. But I know the power behind her voice.
"Valen Nero, Nova Ainsley,"
she says, stepping forward.
"I'm Arden Black."
14. It's a silent standoff for a good, solid minute. I can tell they're all scared to death of Valen. They know what he's done, who he's worked for. These people have been fighting against Dominion for solars, and now they're standing in the presence of Cerilius's right-hand man. I don't blame them for being a little more than nervous. So, I step forward, as does Arden. I shake her hand, feeling more than a little starstruck. Her voice is heard around the galaxy. People turn to her for the truth. She's risked her life for solars now, getting it out there. She's taunted the authorities and teased them. I don't know if I'd have the courage I have without her influence.
"Come in,"
she says, offering a little smile before she turns and walks into the heart of the ship. There's a collective breath let out by everyone at the invitation, the show of trust. But it's small. It's a big ship, and I realize she and these people must live on it. You don't evade those coming after you by staying put in one place for too long. She walks us through the command deck, down a hall, and then it opens into what looks like a big office. There are 5 desks spread throughout the space. They're filled with holotabs and actual paper notepads. There are books all over the place, filling shelves, stacked in random places. There, on one of the desks, is an ultra-high-tech microphone. "This is really so cool," I marvel out loud, blowing my cover of calm. "I've listened to your Spacecast for solars. I never, ever would have dreamt that I'd be inside your studio."
"It's nothing special."
She dismisses my wonder, pulling up a chair.
"It's in a perpetual state of chaos and a constant mess, but it serves its purpose. It's home."
She smiles, but I know the smarts behind those brown eyes. This is a brilliant woman. She extends her hand, indicating for us to grab chairs from the other desks.
"I just have to get this out of the way because it's crucial."
Arden cuts right into things, her brown eyes fixed on Valen.
"The galaxy has feared you for solars. What I do here is very important. You said I can trust you, but it's a little hard to believe. So the first thing you can tell me is what the void changed to make you turn away from everything the galaxy thought you were."
Valen stares at the woman,
and I wonder at her bravery. To everyone but me, he is a bad man. He's a terror. He's dangerous. And now we're saying things are different.
I've changed because I found out what was being done to me,
Valen says, not intimidated by the weight of her question.
I've been a prisoner for nearly my entire life, and until recently I didn't care that I was one. I recently found a reason to live for my own purpose.
And what is that? Arden asks, though the look in her eyes tells me she knows what his answer is going to be.
I found a family worth fighting for,
Valen says, with the weight of 1,000 moons. His words hit the bottom of my stomach, and I swear, the neuron glowing under my veins pulses just a little brighter. So you find a wife and the entirety of who you are changes? Arden asks, doubtful. We're not officially married, I cut in. Yet. Her gaze turns to me, and she raises a brow. And the answer to who you are is a bit of a puzzle, Nova Ainsley. Would you care to share a little insight? My eyes flick to that fancy microphone. Maybe we should save it all for the Spacecast so I don't have to repeat information? We've been broadcasting since we walked in, Arden says with that sly smile of hers. I see Valen's nostrils flare with a little bit of annoyance, his jaw clenching. He doesn't like not being the one in control, not when we're being so vulnerable. With that little introduction, with that little bit of galaxy-shifting news, I would like to introduce you to the first guests I have ever had on this Spacecast. Arden says. She doesn't speak any louder, and even though she isn't sitting all that close to the microphone, she must be confident her listeners can hear everything. You can imagine how intrigued I was when I was contacted a few days ago by someone who claimed to be none other than Valen Nero and a woman named Nova Ainsley. My throat tightens, and my heart is pounding in my chest. We have to get this just right. Be so careful about what we say. We will only get one shot at this. Where would the two of you like to start? Arden asks. I have a feeling there is a lot of ground to cover. Valen and I look at each other. We talked about this. We planned. We strategized.
I'll begin by saying that in some things I had my own free will.
Valen starts, looking right at Arden.
I've never known what it was to do good, or that influence and power could be used for anything other than domination. But even someone like me can change under the right circumstances.
He goes into his history. He talks about his childhood on Starvis. He talks about the tribes and how they worked, how savage life there was. He talks about finding his tribe slaughtered and how he and the other children nearly starved to death. And then comes Dominion and Cerilius. He talks about being rescued by the company and the man and being given food and water and shelter. Valen doesn't leave out the beatings. He doesn't leave out the torture. He tells the listeners about how he discovered his power, how he used it to protect himself, and how everything changed when Cerilius knew he was a Nero, the last one born in generations. He details the mental manipulation, recounts how he was used, how he tried to get away from Cerilius, and then how Cerilius dumped him back on Starvis. My stomach turns as Valen recounts his attempts at surviving on Starvis. A boy on his own on the desert planet. He tells the listeners how he was hunted by his own people, how they nearly killed him, how he was sure that he was going to die. And then Cerilius came back for him and struck a deal. Valen would return to Cerilius' service with no complaint, and Cerilius would give Valen his own planet, where he could retreat for peace whenever he wanted. But surely, as you grew older, you could have found a way to dispose of him, Arden asks, as Valen pauses in his story. Surely, once you were an adult, you could have left him at any time. Valen's bright blue eyes rise up to meet Arden's.
You know, Cerilius employs thousands of Kenduri.
His voice is deep, low, dangerous. It holds me spellbound.
He uses them as his mind readers to pull impressions of the future out of people. But what I did not know until a few lunars ago was that Cerilius uses them to put terror into people's minds as well.
I look at Arden and watch as the color drains from her face.
For solars, Cerilius used them on me, so whenever I thought about doing harm to Cerilius or leaving him, I was engulfed in every bad memory and every thought of dying I'd ever had. I couldn't have left Cerilius until the day after I was dead.
Arden is quiet for a moment, mulling that over. But things seem to have changed now. Did the mind tricks wear off? Valen shakes his head, and slowly he looks over at me.
No, it took another Nero to undo that.
You found Evander Nero. Arden draws her conclusion with a reverent breath.
No,
Valen says solemnly. I take my gloves off, pushing my sleeves up, as does Valen. He takes my hand in his. Arden's eyes lock on both our hands, on the glowing veins. With wide eyes, she looks up at mine, searching and probing. You're a Nero? She asks in a breath. I nod, but realize that those listening can't see it. My name is Nova Ainsley. I grew up on Corpillion. I worked for Horn Energy, but for lunars before I escaped the planet, I was making illegal neuron weapons. The weapons maker? Arden asks, and I can tell her mind is reeling from all the revelations. Yes, I say, swallowing the lump in my throat. This is scary. Terrifying, really. I'm exposing secrets I've kept for over a solar to the entire galaxy. I was trying to save enough credits to get me and my family to another planet. I'm a mechanic and an engineer. I experimented, found I was good at making weapons, and I found people were willing to pay a lot of money for them. In so many ways, I miss those days. They were simple. Yes, I was sneaking around, but building weapons was something I enjoyed. It was easy. Yet I was also lonely. I was hiding who I truly was. One day, I woke up with a voice in my head, I say, holding Valen's hand a little tighter. I didn't know who he was or how it was possible, but over the lunars we bonded. We confided in each other. I didn't know it was Valen until the day Dominion arrived on Corpillion. Arden swears, leaning back in her chair, her eyes flicking from Valen to me and back to Valen. I discovered my powers that day, I say, my throat thick and dry. I nearly died. I was in denial for a long time, but eventually I knew I had to foster my abilities. I go on to explain how I made the plan to kill Cerilius, but when I got to Isroth, found I couldn't. The Kenduri had burrowed into my mind. I had failed. So how did we arrive at this point? Arden asks, her brows furrowed. Valen says he's free, that you broke the bond on his mind, and I see the two of you, once enemies by nature, holding hands. Once more, Valen and I look at one another.
The legend that the Nero can see the future is true,
Valen says, still holding my gaze.
We both saw our futures with each encounter, and even in between. We saw different things, but always we were together, side by side. We didn't like what we saw, outside of the two of us. So we changed the future.
Valen looks back at Arden, so I do too. Do you know how confusing it is to start at the beginning with the person you've already seen your entire life with? I ask Arden, leaning toward her. We needed time to figure out what was real because the future can change. It isn't yet reality.
In the end, parts of the future were real,
Valen says. And this time I know the neuron in our veins pulses brighter. Silence weighs heavy in the office for several beats, and even I have to marvel for a moment at everything that's happened in such a short amount of time. It seems impossible. If I hadn't lived all of it, I don't know if I would really believe it. So, what now? Arden asks quietly. Once more, Valen and I look at each other. We take a few beats to consider our next words. Now, everything changes, I say, looking back to Arden. Now is when those who want things to be different step up. Now is when we have to be brave and band together.
I am not Cerilius's slave any longer,
Valen says. His voice is dangerously low.
And I am very, very angry. I won't let him do to that Nero child what he did to me. I'm ready to end that man and everything he stands for.
We're asking you all to stand with us, I say, holding my head high. We're asking you to unite, to fight. I know you're out there, those who are willing to form an army even Cerilius can't withstand. I'm asking you to help us end Dominion.
If you're ready to stand with us, we're inviting you to the planet that Cerilius gave me himself,
Valen says, and as he speaks, a smile begins forming on his lips.
I'm declaring Kylea the stronghold of this revolution. Meet us there.
The weight and silence that falls is a clear indication that this is over. Arden stumbles to sign off, and I hear a beep that the transmission has ended. Stunned, she falls back into her chair, looking between the two of us. It is an honor to have had this opportunity to speak to the both of you, she says. Valen and I both stand, knowing there is no time to waste. She quickly stands. Thank you for being who you are, I say, and I mean it. You're vital to this galaxy and its dream of freedom. Don't you ever lose hope. She smiles, and I see emotions well in her eyes. I will do whatever I can to help. I nod, thanking her, and I know it's time for us to go. With instructions to keep communication open, with the decision that Arden will be our sounding board for this revolution, Valen and I don our suits and return to our ship. I breathe a big sigh as we remove the suits and the hatches close behind us. Do you think that was the right thing to do? I ask as we head into the command deck.
Right or wrong, it's done now,
Valen says. He takes my hand.
And nothing will be the same again.
My heart thunders and it speaks the truth. It may not have been perfect, but it gets things started. We reach the controls and, easy as anything now, we get the ship lifted off the asteroid. But we've barely lifted off the surface when Valen speaks.
There's a communication request coming through,
Valen says, his brows furrowed. Who is it? I ask. Panic sets in, thinking it will be Cerilius and he's going to say he's got an invisibility cloak and is sitting right on top of us.
Name says Edan,
Valen says, looking warily up at me. Put him through! I nearly yell, happiness and excitement flooding through my entire body.
Had to go and show off to the whole galaxy, huh?
A smile washes over my face as his rough voice floods the space, and I can just imagine his tired, haggard face.
Because not only are you the weapons manufacturer, he continues, you're also a Nero, and you've managed to bag the only other Nero in the galaxy they know about. I think you could stand to learn a little humility, Nova.
Slag, Edan, you're alive! I say, relief flooding through me. Are the others okay?
What the void, Nova?
Zane's voice speaks through the overhead sound system.
You can't just go and disappear like that and then make a major outing on the black hole of truth. Are you trying to give everyone a slam heart attack?
I know I look insane, smiling like I am, but I'm just so slam happy to hear their voices. So instead of letting us know you weren't dead, you've been shacking up with that dirty little puppet? Nimia. I'm sorry, I say, not even annoyed at having to explain myself. We crash-landed on this planet across the galaxy and all communications were down. I had no way to get in touch until now.
Excuses,
Edan teases, but I know I'm not the only one overjoyed to hear the other's voice.
But I think there's someone else you're going to be a little more interested to talk to than the rest of us.
My brows furrow.
Nova.
And every emotion in me explodes. Dad? There are 2 beats, and they're the longest in the world as he gathers his voice.
I knew you'd make it through.
You're... But even now, when I'm hearing his voice, I still can't make myself say the words.
You saved me, Nova,
Dad says, his voice full of emotions.
Apparently it took a bit for your neuron trick to work, Edan says. But about 20 minutes after you and that ship suddenly disappeared out of the sky, good old Torin here woke up. Scared the slag out of us.
An unbelievable laugh bubbles out of my lips as a torrent of tears washes down my face. I dare let go of the Neuron helm for a moment as I cover my mouth with my hands, shaking my head. I thought I couldn't.
It's okay, Nova,
Dad says, and I'm in awe at how much the timbre of his voice comforts me. I can picture him so clearly, as if he's standing here with me.
I'm okay.
I nod, even though he can't see it.
Sounds like we have some work to do, Edan says, and like we've got some traveling to do. Kylea, huh?
Yeah. I laugh again. Where are you? I wipe the tears from my face.
Somewhere in the O sector, Zane pipes up. We've been stalling, hoping to hear from you.
I told you to go to Calypso, I say, utterly annoyed suddenly. What if Cerilius had found you? Who said we had to go running scared? Nimia says, giving me crap just like she always has. I shake my head.
So I guess we'll meet you and Loverboy on his planet in about a lunar.
Edan steps in once more. Yeah, I say, nodding with a smile. I guess we'll see you soon.
Keep her safe until then, Valen.
To my surprise, it's my father who speaks up.
I promise I will, sir,
Valen says, and I marvel that they're getting this opportunity to speak to one another. My family signs out, and with wide, awed eyes, I turn to face Valen. He offers a little smile, and I can see in his eyes that he's happy for me. And I have to wonder at how this is ever going to work, meshing him into the life I have with them.
Should we get going? He asks. We have a revolution to get started.
I nod, filled to the brim with hope and happiness, two emotions I haven't felt in this measure in a very, very long time. Let's go, I say, as my fingers curl around the helm once more. Valen punches in the command, and the neuron in my hands glows brilliant and hot as we rip through space. End of episode 5. This has been Nero Nights, written by Keary Taylor, narrated by Jamie Lamchick. Copyright 2019 by Keary Taylor. Production copyright by Keary Taylor.